Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the 7th regular meeting of the School Board of Directors of MSAD52. We will start the meeting off with the Pledge of Allegiance, which is not going to be led by Crystal Barris, because she is not here tonight, but will be led by myself.
Oh, you don't have the included one. Peter's.
You tease me so. You say my name and then you say.
Oh, Peter.
No, you go.
All right. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We had actually caught that.
My own coffee. All right. First order of business is to review the minutes from our 6th regular meeting. Does anyone have any thoughts, comments, feedback on those minutes? Seeing none, they are approved by unanimous consent. Next up is a report for the board chair, which I will omit for the evening, and we'll move right into public comment. Is there anyone here wishing to speak? Okay. Before you do so, I just want to remind folks that our board meetings are conducted for the purpose of carrying out official business of our schools. It is important to note that the meetings of the board are open to the public, however they are not public forums. At each full meeting of the board, time is allocated to provide opportunities for citizens and employees to express opinions and concerns related to the matters under consideration by the board. These comments shall be within the guidelines set forth in policy BEDH, public participation at board meetings. Copies of that policy are available on the district's website. I'd just like to highlight the following points. The chair is responsible for recognizing all speakers. We ask that speakers identify themselves by sharing their name and town of residence. Each speaker will be limited to 3 minutes to express their views. Speakers should direct all comments to the board, specifically the board chair. This is an opportunity for the board to listen to the opinions of the public that relate to school and education matters, but it is not intended to be a conversation or a debate of issues. We know that school-related issues can be emotional, but we ask that civility is maintained. We will not permit profanity, gossip, defamatory comments, shouting at one another, or comments that disparage or attack individuals or groups. The board is faced with many important issues, so for the sake of efficiency, the board discourages duplication or repetition of comments. The board will also not permit complaints or allegations against staff members. We certainly care about these concerns, but they are personnel matters which the board is not permitted to hear in public. If there are complaints against staff, these will be handled appropriately through our complaint policy, KE. So to reiterate, this is just a highlight of key points. Please refer to policy BEDH for a complete description of our public participation policy. So with that, is there anyone wishing to speak?
Jimmy Childs, Leeds. Regarding the petition, I brought up the fact I garnered over 150 signatures in Leeds. Someone stood up after me and said 150, there's 1,500 residents. Fair enough. I wondered the same thing. What if I was able to knock on all the doors, ask all the people in all 3 towns? Well, wonder no more. It was no hidden agenda what President-elect wanted to do day one, to safeguard our most vulnerable, our children, in our schools. From the adult content, the affirmation agenda that our children are not mentally developed to handle. And everyone that voted for him heard him, knew it, and wants the same thing. 904 to 505 in Leeds. 1,715 to 909 in Green. 2,253 to 1322 in Turner. 4,877 voters would have signed the petition if given the chance. The majority of people in these towns stand with me and I with them. They don't have to fill up this room. Their voice was heard. My question is, are you not elected to balance the system? Will you adhere to the mandate that the people gave? The popular vote, almost 76 million people nationwide so far. When a book is to be reconsidered with inappropriate content, will you stand with the people of your towns? It's said all the research shows that kids and cell phones are not healthy and a distraction. I couldn't agree more. Well, guess what? All the research shows that things of a sexual nature and minors is harmful to their well-being. That's why we have policies that don't allow it on the internet or on clothing. Kids could not read these books out loud in class. Let me remind you that state law says you are a minor if you're 17 years or younger. And that's if you're pregnant or not, unless you are emancipated. A toy maker had to recall a doll for children because the box contains a link to a porn site. Just like the book Gender Queer that's in our schools. When I asked the ex-chair if she saw it when reviewing the book, she said no. Mistakes like that don't just happen. In light of that and the fact that we have new members, I think the inappropriate material in that book should be reconsidered by this board. And if the board doesn't want to take that on themselves, maybe I'll challenge it myself. So, come January, there's going to be probably executive action saying the schools ain't getting funding if they're not going to change their ways and take this adult content out of our schools. So I just hope that you board members are going to think of that and think of the people and the numbers in your towns who you represent.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to speak?
I might be stealing Coral's thunder, I hope not, but I just wanted to say that I started my 10th annual Levitt Reading Challenge this year, and for some reason that I still can't quite explain, it has taken off like something I never expected ever. There are more than 100 students already participating, and it's only been a week. And they have already read at least 70 books, and students, I have pictures of kids sitting there reading. They are so excited to be reading. Candy's a motivator, I guess. And it's just a lot of fun, and it's generated a lot of really exciting buzz around the school, so it's awesome to see.
Great. Thank you very much. Is there anyone else wishing to speak? Okay. Seeing none, we will move on to communications. We'll start off with the board chair communications, of which I have none. We'll move on to the superintendent communications. Carrie.
So, following resignation, Kimberly Goulet, office assistant at Turner Primary, effective 11/8, so last week was the end. We have a transfer, Rebecca Stevens, who's a special ed tech 2 at Green, and she's transferring. Oh, it's just between special ed and resource. It's a transfer within the school to different positions. And then one resignation, a kindergarten teacher at Turner Primary School, Ashley Murnau, effective December 20th. She is changing careers. And then we've added 4 substitutes.
Okay. Any questions on that? Moving on to adjustments to the agenda. Essentially, the agenda has been pretty solid all week. The same agenda that went out initially is the same agenda we're moving with, so there are no adjustments. Moving on to committee reports. We'll start off with the Finance Committee. Ashley.
Yeah. Wally came and presented today. He presented a proposal, or a couple of proposals for buybacks of obsolete iPads. Second Life, which I believe they've done buybacks with that company before. So these iPads are old, they haven't been in use for a while, and he's expecting about $16,000 to $18,000 for that. So we did, that'll be on the consent agenda for tonight, because they do need to submit that contract by tomorrow. And we did approve that unanimously. Wally also updated us on an E-rate project that he's doing, where he wants to, this was something he started back in the spring through a program where it's a federal program that covers 60%, we pay 40%. And there's a small fee for the consultant fee who helps with the grant writing with that. So he's looking into getting quotes to start working on some switches and licensing across the district that he wants to update. And that'll go into the fiscal year 26 budget, so that's what he's working on. And Gabby presented us some information on increasing the sub-bus driver rates for athletic routes. That'll be on the consent agenda next week.
Any questions? Thank you. Ashley? And your next
Can I,
meeting?
can I just clarify one thing? It's for anybody who subs, but it's, the hope is that it will get us some more drivers to do athletics. I just, in case anyone listens and they're concerned it wouldn't count for other bus routes.
Okay. All subs. And your next meeting is December 19th, when we're in Leeds. Plant Transportation and Building Committee, Kyle.
We did not meet tonight. I guess partially we did. Next meeting is December 5th at 5:30 in Green.
Very good. I know policy met tonight. Jamie?
Yeah, we met tonight. We had Evan there to present a policy on extracurricular, co-curricular requirements, so that will come back to you guys. And it was like a student code of conduct. And we discussed the energy conservation policy for deletion, so that will come on the consent agenda as well, along with the revised policy that we had of the board organizational meeting that we talked about at our last meeting. So we just went over that, took everything the board said into consideration at that meeting, and then made the appropriate edits. So that will come back on the consent agenda, but we're happy to go over the edits if we need to. And tonight, you just have the child find policy and homeless students on your consent agenda for a second reading and adoption. And that's it. Our next meeting is gonna be December 19th at Leeds.
Very good. Curriculum for you?
We did not meet tonight, so our next meeting is scheduled for December 5th at 5:30 at Green Central.
Very good. Very good. And our student representative report, and I believe she might have snuck these flyers into our packets tonight. Is that true?
That was a
Maybe.
joint project.
Maybe?
I don't know who would do that,
I don't know either.
but you guys should really go.
Yeah.
So I have a few things. Right now, Key Club is trying to get food for the Thanksgiving food drive, anything non-perishable. Key Club also raised about $300 for hurricane relief for school districts in North Carolina. The career fair was November 7th. There was about 55 vendors for colleges, military, small businesses, all that jazz. And we had the craft fair this past weekend, which was very well attended.
Very good. Very good. We'll move on to administrator reports, and our first up for tonight is the principal from Leeds Central School, Ms. Barkash.
So lots of fun stuff going on at Leeds, but I really want to highlight that our 5th and 6th graders giving back to the community. We heard that there was a need for some wood to be moved. So Mrs. Slovak organized it. We got all the kids on there. Please don't tell the parents, but the kids actually had fun moving the wood. We're also in the middle of a food drive, and we're still paying attention to attendance as part of the grant. We had 48 kids with perfect attendance last month. So, any questions about what I submitted?
Very good. Anyone? Questions? All right, thank you so much. Our next report will be from our Turner Primary School Principal, Ms. Fuller.
Okay. So some of the fun things that we've got going on is we had our third annual Halloween parade, and very well attended. We had a great day. It was nice and warm, and kids were adorable as usual. And then following day, we had our family breakfast, and we served just shy of 300 people for that breakfast, so it was very well attended. And we also participated in the coin drive for the North Carolina School District, and we raised around $700. So, yeah. My other items are on the sheet if there's any questions.
I like the triangle data report. I think it helps to highlight like what a small percentage of students are responsible for
Yes.
most of the referrals.
Yes, yeah.
That's interesting to see.
And to highlight on that, I think there's that's the Tier 2 group. And all of the students that are being supported are being very successful. There's like a percentage, we like to see them succeeding about 80% of the day. And so they're all 80 or above. And that also helps them feel good, that they're working on their goals. And also it reduces behavioral referrals. We always like that.
Anyone with questions?
Anybody else?
Yes, Anthony.
I'd be curious to know if do you have any information on or insight into why the referrals have dropped precipitously? If I'm reading this graph correctly, it looks like you've gone from, it's less than half of the
Yes,
previous month.
and also we have the rest of the month to go, but we've really been ramping up, so supporting those kids that were really popping and having some issues. So that's part of, we have our check and check out system. We have classroom incentives. We have take a break for kids that might need a little time away to resettle and go back. And again, I think it has a lot to do with having Lindsay Hulse as the dean, because she's really working with the students and providing that support.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you so much. Our third administrative report tonight will be from the Director of Special Education, Ms. Drysdale.
I don't have anything extra other than if you have any questions for me, the information I shared with you regarding the reports and the student counts.
Anyone? Yes, go ahead.
So the upward trend of the number of students that are being brought into the special education program, kind of any thoughts to that, or are they the same reasons that you're seeing every year, or what do you think is the driving cause of that?
I think it's a good question. I think there are multiple factors. I think we've seen an increase in parent referrals, parents going to their physicians referring them to public school to be able to complete evaluations, because there is an increased wait list for evaluators outside of school, and parents are interested, if they're interested in their child has a disability. So we've had an increase of that. We've also are working and we'll be sharing on our interventions, what we're doing, and we speak up our core instruction, how we're differentiating and supporting our students in their learning, and then how we are also examining, is it time to go through a special education referral. So I think there are instructional pieces, I think there's awareness pieces that contribute to that.
Would you say in general that you feel that the percentage of the student population is just, there's a higher percentage of special ed today than there was 10, 15 years ago?
Yes, it's steadily increasing, and I think we are having lots of conversations that special education is not an alternative education pathway. Really, every student that is coming to our schools is a general education student first, and then they may have a 504 plan to support them through accommodations. They might have an IEP plan to support them with additional instruction, but really honing in on having them have access to core instruction and be able to support them that way as well. But it's a trend happening in some districts in Maine, and then it's also the federal percentage of students being identified is about anywhere from 14 to 16%, and we're at 22. So we are much higher than the federal standard.
If that trend continues, let's say over the next 5 to 10 years, and that percentage of the population that is considered to be in the special education program keeps increasing, is there going to be a point where that program is going to be too large to be maintained within a public school building alongside regular education?
Well, I don't think so. No. So it can never be too large, because we are mandated in order to provide a free, appropriate public education to all students, whether they have a disability or not. So they will always be housed and provided education within their public school, unless a team, an individual team called an IEP team, decides where their placement may be, which may be what we have talked about in the past in terms of might be a special purpose private school, but that is extremely costly, and we really don't want to separate students with disabilities from their general education peers.
The vast majority of kiddos are being educated in regular classrooms, so there's not really a separate program. There are separate programs, but not for the vast majority of students.
Go ahead, Jeremy.
Again, I just want to say that, like, when we're talking about, like, increased number of referrals, I think people tend to think that this means children that are what you want to classically call special ed kids. These referrals are anybody that needs an IEP. So this can be somebody that has a hearing deficit. This can be somebody that was born with one arm. This can be somebody, this does not mean somebody that is necessarily needs to be taken out of a classroom and brought into a special school. So we need to be careful with that. I also want to say, like, from another perspective, you know, we see more children with referral to special ed over the last 10 to 15 years for increased reasons, like, you know, when I first started doing neonatal nursing, the survival was 26 weeks. A 26-weeker is what would survive. Now we go down to 22 weeks. So you are going to see more babies surviving that are vastly more premature. Those babies significantly have more developmental delays and require special ed services. We also have the ability to keep children like my kid alive who would have died 20 years ago at birth, but because of advancements in cardiac care and surgery, those children are surviving into adulthood. But one of the things is they do have disabilities, and so they do require an IEP. So with advancements in medicine, you're going to see more children surviving than used to survive. Some of them are going to end up with disabilities, and so you're going to see increased rates. So that's just my perspective.
Yep, go ahead, Kyle.
With these referrals, do they automatically get placed in these numbers, or is some of these referrals getting carried over to the following year, like that they don't get placed, or is it that Columbus students is at that point, those referrals, they're all getting stuck into that class, and it's all a new body of referrals that come down?
You're asking a couple of things. One of the pieces when we look at referrals, last May, from last May to the May before, we had 75 referrals for students, which is staggering. We've never had that many. But this breaks it up to last year we had 60, and those 70, the rest of them carried over into this school year. So we might have a student being referred for special education in May, but we have a timeline, and as I said below, they have interventions for 6 to 12 weeks, and prior to determine if they may need special education. From there, what we do is then we meet in what we call the Step 1 IEP meeting, and at that Step 1 IEP meeting, we determine whether they would benefit from educational evaluations, and that would be if the student, we suspect, has a disability or might come in with a diagnosis, if that disability adversely impacts them to where they're performing below grade level in spite of those 6 to 12 weeks of interventions. And then from there, we would be predicting in that first meeting of whether they would require, we think, specially designed instruction in order to benefit, which is extra over and above general education. And so from there, we would, if the team agrees, we say yes to all of those questions, then we complete the paperwork, we send home a parental consent to evaluate, and then we begin the evaluation process, which can take up to 45 school days. We meet within that 45 school day time frame, and then at that point review those 3 questions again, and then if we say yes again to all of those 3 questions, then we develop a plan. So it is the referral process is thorough, it's thoughtful. We have based on that information with data. It's time consuming, it's a lot of work for all of our providers, and special education teachers and our general education teachers. But in the end, it's the team that decides whether they'll move on or not. So last year, we had I was saying we had like 75 referrals. 25%, basically about 25 of them did not qualify. So not all students that are being referred will meet the criteria based on that thorough process that we have. And we follow that same process, whether it's a parent referring, questioning whether their child would be eligible for special education, or a teacher, or somebody that it knows the student. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, Nikki.
So under the staffing update, you note that there are 20 ed tech positions that are still vacancies. What percentage of that is that of the intended force? Does that make sense?
So what % of all the ed tech positions are open right now?
Yes.
I don't have the full number that we have, so
I
I
can
can.
get you a percentage, but not right now.
Yeah, we can get that to you. Just gonna sit in the corner and do magic math.
I had a second half of that, and so you mentioned that you're filling these with contracts and with long-term subs, and I'm interested to know how cost-efficient or inefficient is that, as opposed to actually having those people on staff? And then the follow-up is, why aren't we filling those? Is it are there just not enough qualified people? Is it that they're finding higher paying work elsewhere? So if that, I don't expect an answer tonight, but
No, I mean,
find that really
Rebecca and I could
interesting
answer some,
information.
yeah, no, I mean, Rebecca, those contracts are more than if they were our employees, 100%. But the employees, they're getting a much higher wage, but no benefits. So our wage includes that benefit package, so if they are somebody who doesn't need benefits, they can work with one of these agencies and exchange that for higher pay. And we're paying not only that wage, but also we don't pay the employee, but the cost that we pay for that contract is more. So it is more expensive, but I think there's situations where we need somebody to do the work to make sure that the kids are getting what they need. So we increased the wages through the ESP contract last year. Our hope is that starts to catch on, but and some of the people, like Jana's got some people who are working towards being certified. So I think there's lots of people out there who'd love to do the job. They don't have enough college credits. They don't, you know what I mean, to get certified. So they just need to keep taking classes. We recently published a program the state is running called Learning Facilitator Program, where they can take a course to get emergency certification so they can get a job and then can start taking classes. And that is a benefit that we provide, is coursework. To have that paid. So it really depends, but I think the pool of people who want to do the work, are qualified to do the work, have enough courses to do the work is just smaller.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's super challenging.
Go ahead, Gabby.
I just had a quick question. Were you looking for the total number of ed techs that we presently have versus how many are open, or
Yes.
specifically?
Yes.
Okay, I can have that for you in a little bit.
Okay, something to do, something to kill the time.
And you had held a job fair last year, correct? I remember gearing up for the job fair.
So excited.
And I think, if I recall, there was one person that showed up?
One person.
That was one.
Yeah. So, just doesn't sound like a large pool.
Are they still with us?
No,
No.
never, no.
No.
They came for the
Never
donut.
applied.
They came from So what I will say, like back in the day, and probably Evan remembers this, probably all of you guys remember this, that you used to be able to hire teachers who didn't get jobs, so like teachers fresh out of college who just didn't get a job because it was competitive to get your first teaching job. I think you like, I remember when I applied for my first job here, it was like a pool of 30 social studies teachers. So you could get those, pick them up in August and September because they hadn't gotten hired, and so they want to get their foot in the door, and so they take an ed tech position. So they're way overqualified, but they're awesome because they were trained as teachers. Those do not exist anymore. That pool is gone because there aren't enough extras. We're still trying to fill the teaching positions. So that used to be a really awesome set of people that we could pull in, and those people aren't there anymore. So the pipeline for the teacher side impacts the pipeline for the ed tech side as well.
Go ahead, Alex.
On the referrals, are those mostly generated by the parents going to the primary care provider and then they go to you? Or is it teachers, or is it a combination of all of that, or?
Well, according to child find policy, we're obligated to identify students that have disabilities and may be eligible for special education. We have the same responsibilities for 504, but we do have a portion, we do have parents going to their primary care physicians, and they primary care physicians at this point are telling them that there is anywhere from a 6-month to like an 18-month wait list for outside providers to do evaluation. So then they say, go talk to your school if you have concerns, and then we begin that process. But that's generally, much like child find or the referral process, a doctor can refer, a parent can refer, a case manager can refer, a teacher can refer, anybody that really has knowledge.
So it's a combination, like it is coming from everybody.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah. Moving on to the Assistant Superintendent's report. Ms. Gillis.
I'm going to save my minutes for my report later on this evening.
Okay. Thank you. Carrie?
Yeah, I just have a couple things. So through the District Safety Committee, I have been taking my little road show to staff meetings to share some of the safety findings and, as I say, crushing dreams left and right around curtains and extension cords and all those things, and refrigerators in classrooms. Staff have been great. I think I've done 4 schools so far. Did the middle school this week, high school last week. This is actually, I'm very excited about this. Shout out to Tyler. We have a meeting scheduled with all of the 3 towns' first responders, plus the Department of Transportation, one of their traffic specialists, tomorrow with our reunification planning team to really look at what it will look like if a school had to reunify with parents here at up there at the high school. That's what we're working on right now. So let's say there's a fire at TPS and we got to bring all the kids up because we can't have the kids at that school anymore. What would that look like? How would we manage the traffic? How would we manage parents showing up? How would we do all that? We've got a plan internally, but this was the external part, was the part that we hadn't done. And so this is really kind of the first time, I think, that I'm aware of. I don't know, Evan, you've been around a little bit longer in terms of the safety planning stuff. I'm not sure if any kind of meeting like this has happened in the past. Yeah, so very excited about that. Tyler's taking the lead on that, and it's gonna make my anxiety go down a little bit to know that all the fire departments all kind of know how they're gonna operate this. I've also met with at least 2 leadership teams, well, more than 2, but this week 2 leadership teams, Leeds and Turner Elementary, to continue the initial planning phase of the possibility of putting in a 1 hour a week early release for PD time. I'm also in the process of communicating with daycares that are in all 3 towns in terms of letting them know that we're having this conversation, that it's not a decision, but it's a conversation, and asking for feedback from them around that. And the goal would be that we have some kind of plan for the board to start looking at in January, before we start budget season. There shouldn't be an impact on the budget, but in terms of just that calendar typically gets decided in that time frame as well. And then finally, Amy Pelletier, who's our HR specialist, and I did a webinar this week on the new Maine Paid Family Leave Act. We both agreed that it's going to be awesome for us as employees and all of you as employees. It's going to be wicked challenging for people in charge of keeping things functioning, like administrators, superintendents, business managers, just in terms of what this means for the benefits employees are going to have through the program. So Drummond and Woodson put it on. There was a lot of participation, lots of new information that is going to help us guide us through this. Maine School Management has sort of asked for districts provide like numbers of employees you have for them to look at what the possibility would be of a private option, so not run through the state, but run through Maine School Management. And I don't know if that's gonna be possible, and certainly we're not in a position to make a decision, but if we ever would, it would have to come here. So we're just still investigating that piece, and I don't think that decision even has to get made for another, I don't know. The benefits don't start until April, I think, or May of 2026. So some decisions, so there's a lot of moving parts, a lot of new information pretty regularly, but it will have an impact on our budget for sure. There was a smaller impact last year. It will be a little bit larger this year, I think. Last year, we only had to plan for January till the end of the year. This January 1 is when the new payroll tax starts. Next year, obviously, it will be a full year. So.
Any questions for the superintendent? Go ahead, Peter.
First of all, since you're on your tour, the safety tour, are they prepared for you now? Is it different, you know, has the story got out so they're all ready for you? And they're all hidden, all the extension cords are hidden, everything's gone?
Well, you know, I've upped my game in trying to like be a little jokey. I think that helped at the middle school. Like I've done it enough times so that like I can say like, you know, so for example, if you have an extension cord that's taped down, it's been used so long, right? So it's taped down, it's safe, people aren't gonna, but you've had to use an extension cord for, did you know that if it's at least 90 days, then you need to have a permanent solution to that? So one teacher did suggest, well, if I unplug it at day 89, will that be enough? It's like, I don't think that's really what we're aiming for. We're just aiming for buildings to not have fires so that they are usable. That's really, you know, the goal. So it seems to be going well. I have not had, nobody's chased me out of a building with pitchforks yet. So it's going good.
On another side note, and this is something I've been thinking of for a while, when it comes to safety, and this kind of goes more to our administrators in general, when we have, for lack of a better term, a fire drill in the school, and I suspect we have a variety of different drills over the course of the year. Do we make a point of having those drills at specific different times? Because one of the questions I've often wondered is like, okay, if you have a drill, if you have 3 fire drills in the course of the year and they all happen during class time, that's simple, but shouldn't we have a fire drill during recess? Shouldn't we have a fire drill during lunch? Because who knows when a fire is going to happen, or who knows when you know, and yeah, it's going to be more confusing, but I feel that those, so I'm just curious, does that happen?
So I would guess not lunch. No. But I would say different times of day. So I don't know.
Yeah, different times of day, different days, but we haven't had one during lunch or recess.
Well, recess in particular, I can see as being a major time. You know, if you have something, especially with kids, completely out of a whole different loop, because who knows when something's going to happen.
Yeah.
And so we can't completely plan on it always happening, whether in the classroom.
It is something we've had conversations about for sure, 100%. Teresa, did you want to?
So we once had a student pull the fire alarm during lunch, and the students all got out. It was great, but there were laws at the time, which I'm guessing there probably are, is once they left, they were not able to come back in because their tray wasn't in front of them. So it created a lot of chaos, and we just
like they couldn't finish their lunch?
Right. Oh. We had to make them new lunches.
Because they left their food.
Had left their food, and how did we know who was sitting where, because they were little children? So we decided that in the event there was a fire at lunchtime, the kids would know what to do. We were not gonna practice that. So that, I wouldn't advise it, because I think it just creates, I mean, I think, from my knowledge, the principals do. Like
but at the very least, I think training teachers around those scenarios is something that totally makes sense and is appropriate. Yeah, 100%.
Any other questions? Okay. Oh, Gabby.
I have numbers.
Oh, very good.
So we presently have 77 ed techs, ed tech 1, 2, and 3. I didn't break it down. And with Rebecca's 20 open positions, that equates to 20% of our ed tech population. That does not include open ed text within regular instruction in the schools though, so.
So do we have 77 total or 77 just in special ed?
No,
Special ed.
77, no.
Oh, total, okay, sorry.
77 ed text total that we have presently working for the district. I didn't break out special.
We
ed.
do have a couple of regular eds open
Yes.
though.
But is that the amount of positions or amount working?
That's the amount working with the 20 that Rebecca has open, that's 97, which is
Okay.
20%.
Very good. It's actually probably, you're rounding there a little bit.
I am, it's 20.
Which probably hurts.
855,
I was gonna say, it's
670,
hurting her to round that
103.
number.
Like, if you want the exact number, go on.
Yeah.
Well, I think we ought to deal with real numbers, not the fake stuff.
I'll remember that.
All right.
All right.
You're gonna regret that.
What about the bag?
We can't see past it.
It's a purpose, it's there.
Oh, oh, yeah.
It's right in the
It is, it
visual.
blocks Peter.
Yeah, Peter, all you can see
Oh,
his
yeah,
hands.
but now
Oh, I
can
thought
see
you were
Kimberly.
asking for the bag that you wanted.
Oh, you guys are watching
I
our
wasn't sure
recording.
Karen-
Oh, they're
Just
watching.
look down,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
a
yeah.
Oh,
big
so in other words, if I talk, you couldn't see me.
Yeah, I can see his hands.
All right.
It's better than what I wanted to do with it.
Your catch.
We're moving on now to our consent agenda. Just a reminder, these are items to be acted upon collectively unless the board member asks that a specific item be acted upon individually. So with that in mind, are there any board members wishing to motion one of these consent agenda items out of the consent agenda? Seeing none, we'll entertain a motion for item 8.1, the consideration and approval of Finance Committee recommendation of sale of obsolete iPads, as well as 8.2, consideration and approval of the Curriculum Committee recommended second reading and adoption of revised policies 8.2.1 IHBAC, child find policy, and 8.2.2, which is JFABD, admission of homeless students. Breeze making the motion, seconded by Anthony. All those in favor? That is unanimous. We do not have any old business this evening, so we'll move on to new business.
Are you gonna do 8.2?
It was
Oh, it was included.
I can reread the consent agenda if you
I was like,
want.
am I just voting on the iPads?
No, no.
I also voted on 8.2.
Okay, good. Very good.
You, that's a double vote, that is
Nice
not
double.
allowed.
Thank you, Jamie.
Those are for babies, they're policies, so needed to make sure.
I wanted them double voted.
So moving, without old business, we'll move on to new business, item 10.1, which will be a presentation from our Tripp Middle School principal, Ms. Mates. And we're looking for the television.
Put itself to sleep. Is there a remote on the table?
There was, but it disappeared on me.
See if it's in the back.
I'll set it over here.
I don't think if you can remote to turn it on, but we're gonna give it a try.
You could. Just move your
Kyle,
chair.
that's why you're at the little kids table.
Where did that go?
At the little kids table.
That's a good one. Ha!
There we go.
Someone took care
Drop
of
the
it.
hook, Kyle.
It's like my wife, she's like, I
Yes.
don't know why.
That was
She's the one who
swing
took
up
care
with
of
the little kids. That was like the last night. Did Peter put them in?
You're playing for
I know,
everything.
but did you bring Peter?
Yeah. Those are the good,
Easy
those are the
part.
bad ones. What's over the cell stuff.
That's a happy looking person.
Yeah, right?
Janet planned this.
It's,
She's very serious. There we go.
now it's still
Even better.
Charlie Brown.
We should have woken up, we should have
They're
woken
only on
it up
Apple TV. I
earlier.
tried to watch that the other day.
The Apple TV is definitely on.
I don't have Apple TV.
Oh.
I couldn't watch it.
No, it's
About the
just-
only thing I don't
it's
have.
spinning.
From my son.
Awesome. Oh, I have a handout. I have
Says
this,
cannot
I have a
connect to
printout.
Meteor Center. No.
Do you need to
Printed
plug,
this for you guys,
do
so
you need to
we
plug in directly?
can go old school.
Is Brady, you guys?
No, he just starts it.
Thank you.
Yes, this is my remote.
How did we cancel
Thank you.
These all on top? No, no, no. Is that Apple? I've seen it advertised.
Yes, it is Apple. Actually very
Yeah.
excited it premieres Friday.
So literally, normally you just go to here.
Yeah.
She's back. Looking at it.
It did it the other day when I was here. Why don't you try to do, why don't we try to do?
How many administrators does it take?
It's almost seems like a central office. Something like that.
They look serious too.
Teresa, are you ready to pivot?
What if you
I have a handout, I'll just
click
talk you
Google and
through
open
it.
it back up?
Oh, we have a
Because it
handout
works,
now.
I did hand out a hard copy.
I know, but principals.
Like, just cancel Google and open it back up and see. The only other option would be to like restart. Is that, oh, it's shared with me.
No, we're gonna push her off the cliff. Look at her.
Yeah, no, but she's smiling about it. She's happy. No, she doesn't look happy.
Wi-Fi network?
I don't know any of those words.
There used to be two, so that was a
I
problem,
know
but
Charlie Brown.
there aren't anymore.
Oh, yeah, of course.
And I got on here no problem when I was here earlier this week, so.
Is that a documentary?
It's not even showing up on my list.
They're happy.
Okay, let me see if I can.
Let me see if I can get it up.
The
What,
bird.
TV?
I've got Media Center Tampa.
What's the name of the bird?
Okay.
Charlie Brown.
Oh, wait, you just kicked me off.
Yeah, you
That's
picked
me,
me up, so
that's
we're
me.
working here.
Somebody leave it.
I'm on.
Can
Take
you
your
go
hands off
to-
the keyboard.
Yeah, can you go to slideshow? view?
Yes, I can. You just tell me to click.
Okay.
Woo!
Nice.
They are.
Teamwork.
All right, you can go ahead, you can go ahead and click. So the next slide just talks about our demographics. We are currently at 324 students. Our 8th grade is the largest class we've had in a while at 174. The incoming 7th grade was projected at about 135, and we're about at 150. 8th grade has also grown, I think, almost 11 students this year. So we're 35 students higher than we expected to be. Projected enrollment for the next couple of years keeps this trend going. We currently have 72 students that fall under the special education umbrella, 24 students with a 504, and 155 of our 324 qualify as economically disadvantaged.
No, the 24 is included in the 72?
No,
No, they're separate?
correct. Yes, Andrew?
Is that economically disadvantaged figure, is that fairly consistent year to year? Or do you know?
It's a little bit tough because Carrie's talked about it before, the last couple of years, like not as many families were completing the forms because of the change in the lunch, but my guess would be that this is about average if you were to go back about, well, pre-pandemic when people had to pay for food and were filling out the forms. So yes. Go ahead. This is just a graph to show the projected enrollment that I had talked about. It does show next year dropping a few students, but continuing to be well over the 300 student mark. I broke it down to the 3 goals that we have here at the middle school. The first is to have every trip student involved in at least one sport or extracurricular activity. Currently, and it's a little bit higher than this now that we've done our rosters for winter sports, but at the end of fall, 77% of our students were currently participating in at least one activity or sport, which is pretty awesome. 179 students participated in a fall sport, and 145 were participating in either a trimester or a year-long extracurricular activity. A majority of these happen at one point during the school day, which does allow some students more access if they weren't able to stay after school. What's that?
how are we doing this? I sort of spoke to it before. We've built some of these enrichments into our flex block. It's a half an hour block that happens every day. One of the ones I wanted to highlight is our Unified Champions. Unified Champions is a multi-sport program that pairs students with and without disabilities on the same sports team, promoting inclusion, friendship, and good sportsmanship. At Trip, we offer unified basketball, track and field, bocce, and bowling. Our second goal, for board members that were part of the board last year, and in my first board presentation, we were talking about the bar work that we're doing here at the middle school. Through bar, we track data, and students are leveled at a level 0, 1, 2, or 3. This is the rubric that bar gives us. About 45% of our students should be at a level 0, meaning they're transitioning, acclimating, and navigating middle school successfully, pretty much on their own, maybe with some small tier 1 interventions. Level 1 should be about 35% of our students. Again, pretty successful. They might be failing one course, might have small attendance issues, but for the most part, we're able to meet their needs in the general ed class. Level 2 students, about 15%, and those are students that need more intensive interventions. And then level 3 would be our highest need students. Typically, BAR recommends that is about, or 5% of your students would be about on par. And those are students that fall into what we call like the community connect, meaning they need more services than just like the instructional team can provide. And we're often including outside providers or looking for additional resources in the community to help support them. It might be students that have, major things going on at home. They might have health needs. They might fall into our Making Even to Homeless qualifications. And so each month when I do my BAR report, I will update with you, to you guys, like the percent that we have here at Trip and how closely that aligns with the suggested levels. One of our goals this year at the middle school is to track the amount of students that are moving from level 2 into level 1 or 0. Often level 3, Community Connect, it's qualifiers that are out of their control a lot of time, right? But level 2 means things that we can work on and try and meet their needs within the classroom. And so we can't really keep a percentage because those numbers are sort of ebb and flowing all the time, but if you go to the next slide, each week we're tracking data across our whole building on things like the number of referrals, the percent attendance, like their ADA, and then the bottom one is the number of students that are moving out of tier 2 into tier 1 or 0, meaning what we're doing is successful for them. And then how are we doing this? A big part of this happens during our crew block. So at Trip, we have, I don't want to say it's a complicated schedule, but we have a traditional schedule that those of you that are not like in education would mostly understand, like math and science, social studies. We also have the 2 additional blocks, one of them being the flex block that I talked about earlier, where we run interventions and enrichments. And then the second one is our crew block. And that's sort of like an extended homeroom. At the high school, it's HPT. And it's a smaller group of students, usually 10 to 12 students with their advisor. And there's several points throughout the day that they sort of spend together, and it becomes kind of like your school family. And so 3 mornings a week, you have crew in the morning when you get here. And so on Monday, you check in. I send the staff sort of a weekly update about what the week is going to look like. They translate it into kids' language and then share with students. And if anybody has middle school students or have had middle school students, that means reminding them 6 times like what time they have practice and any extracurricular activities that are going on, what the schedule looks like for the day, what lunch is going to be, reminding them to go get a pass for study hall. All of those types of things happen on Monday. It's also a good chance for advisors to check in with kiddos and just make sure their weekend was okay and they are in a headspace to be able to navigate the day and the week. Tuesdays, students during the block work on student portfolios. So for our student-led conferences, they're working on digital portfolios to showcase their learning for when their parents or guardians come in. And throughout the year, and our goal or hope is to send those up to the high school so that the receiving teachers have as much information as possible about their learning. Wednesday, we've been focusing on digital citizenship. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in the next slide because I know that that was a question that some of the board members had. Thursday is when we do some team building and celebrations, our Student of the Month, academic awards, some of our crew challenges. And Friday is when we do grade and habit of work checks. And so every other Friday, students are checking their own grades, emailing their parents how they're doing, so we don't ever get put in that situation where somebody doesn't know. And then on the opposite Fridays, we do a habit of work check. Here you can earn a habit, like a how pass, a habit of work pass, which just gets you additional incentives because you've earned them by being safe, respectful, responsible, and prioritizing your work on a regular basis. And those are small things like going outside during the breakfast break or going in the gym when you finish your lunch. But middle school students like freedom, so that's how we incentivize that. The digital citizenship piece, this one is a little bit wordier, and I'm trying not to read the slides, but I feel like I do want to expand on this one a little bit more. These are age-appropriate digital citizenship lessons that we have taken from Common Sense Media. It's been part of our crew block since I started here 4 years ago. Some of the pieces were incorporated into the health curriculum even before that. The lessons are selected in response to trends in student behaviors and in an effort to be proactive in teaching our students healthy habits around phone and internet use. Over the last few years, we have seen an increased number of incidents occurring mostly online, like social media platforms, Snapchat, TikTok, Instagram, which ironically you're supposed to be 13 or 16 to be on, so most of our kids don't even qualify for having an account, but they do anyway. And because of that, even if these pieces are happening outside of school hours, if they affect the social well-being of students and it carries over into the school setting, it falls sort of under our jurisdiction. And so whether that be somebody posting an inappropriate video or saying really unkind things on like a group text. And so we're trying to get ahead of that and being proactive about working with students during this crew block about the impacts of some of those decisions that they're making, both like emotionally and legally. And so staff are facilitating these lessons. A lot of times these lessons contain like middle school scenarios, like they'll walk you through, if the student did this, how would you guys respond, which just warrants like conversations within the classroom, and the teacher is able to sort of guide and facilitate. I shared a little bit more about the ones that we've done so far. So media balance and well-being, that one really talks about like how much are you on your cell phone, how much are you on a tablet or watching TV versus being able to get outside or participating in a club in which you're like interacting with other kiddos. Being aware of what you share. Again, that's really talking about making middle school students, I don't know if people are familiar with like Snapchat. I don't have it, but like you post something and then it goes away, right? But it doesn't actually really go away. When you're 13, you don't realize that. So just talking about like those types of things. Same thing, my social media life, responding to online speech. When people say really unkind things to you or to someone else online, like what can you do about it? Like at the middle school level, snitching is something that's not really considered cool, and so we really have to work with kids on how to teach them appropriate ways to like be an upstander or to report if they see or hear something that's going on that they know isn't right. And again, this just in, the importance of getting the whole story before you share, talking about like rumors and when people are saying and doing things, and then you share that with the person next to you, even though like there might not be any credibility behind it. And the last piece, again, upstanders and allies, and really tying that into some of the district policies around bullying, harassment, cyberbullying, even hazing, which we've been talking about a little bit more. And our third goal over the next year Instructional staff will continue to unpack curriculum, so standards, resources, methods, and assessments, and create common formative and summative assessments with scoring criteria. And so this is sort of like year 2 of that goal. We started last year, we're continuing this year. Last year we implemented, we restructured our leadership team and we added content leaders. That's been a huge benefit here, just having someone in the lead for each of our content areas that can also serve as like a liaison between the elementary school and the high school, and be a point person when we plan district-wide professional development. And then some of the adjustments that we've been making in response to data. It's no secret that the math data across the district, the state, the country is not where it should be. Teresa is spearheading some of the curriculum work that and standards work that's happening, and so we're fortunate enough, our new assistant principal here, Amanda Gray, is very strong in math, and so she's one of the representatives on the district's math standards team. We also have a new math teacher here, who used to be a math consultant, and so she's working along with Amanda as part of the curriculum selection committee representing the Tripp Middle School, and so I feel really good about having their voices at the table. We have a partnership with UMF, Rebecca's talked about that some, regarding special education practices and opportunities for more inclusion here. We moved to a fully co-taught math model this year, so I'm tracking some of the data for that. In my next board report, I hope to be able to report out on any of the progress that's been making, shifting from like pull-out math to co-taught math, in which you have a special ed and a regular ed teacher in the math classes. And then I talked already about increased enrichment opportunities during the flex block and being creative, especially for our kiddos that have social skills goals as part of their IEP, and really building those into opportunities like the Unified Champions that we were talking about. And last, I just wanted to highlight some of the community partnerships and service learning that's happening. We had our 13th Successful Veterans Day Assembly last Friday. That was a pretty great experience. I try not to cry, and I do every time. It's just really cool to see like all of our kids participating in the flag ceremony, and then they wrote letters to veterans, and then they were actually able to give them to different veterans in the community, which is just pretty powerful. Our students participated in a walkathon. One of the books that they're reading, the 7th graders are reading in their ELA classes, Along Walk to Water. It talks about like the water crisis in South Sudan. And then it makes connections to science and just the importance of like clean water. I should connect them with you guys about the water project. What is it? Yeah. Anyway, they on their own decided to do a service learning project and do a walkathon to raise money to send to a charitable organization in South Sudan that tries to get clean water for schools there. A sock drive. We have our Tiger Takeout, which is a food pantry for students that have food insecurities, and it's been pretty cool. Like almost all of our sports teams have been donating percentages of the funds that they raise, selling food and doing boosters or bottle drives to the Tiger Takeout. So it's been pretty great to see kids within our own community giving back to kids within our own community. It was a lot. Questions?
You highlighted the math curriculum, and I think I've even heard you say this before, but you kind of at the middle school kind of bear the brunt of the assimilation of all 3 elementary schools, perhaps being on different pages, right? And how long, we establish this curriculum and then implement this new unified curriculum, should we expect another few years for the kids to react to that before it starts feeling like they're coming together this more similarly, or is that ever going to be something that we really get to, of having each school bringing kids together more easily?
I'm definitely hopeful that once we decide on a set of shared resources, that in combination to some of the vertical planning work that's happening, like 6th grade teachers meeting with 7th grade teachers, 8th grade teachers meeting with 9th grade teachers, that we're starting to close some of those gaps already. But we definitely need to make sure that elementary schools are on the same page, that we're not seeing different gaps coming from students at different sending schools.
Sure.
I'm hopeful that within, I would say if we're able to select the instructional materials this year, get the training done and put it into place next year, we'll be able to start seeing some of the benefits the following year, at least at the middle school.
Middle school.
Yeah, and the stuff we're looking at is K-8, so I would hope to say the same thing for the high school as well, because we're just as guilty sometimes.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Any other questions? Go ahead, Anthony.
I'm not sure how I want to frame, how I want to ask this, but.
Okay.
So, we learned at a recent meeting that, or we were reminded at a recent meeting that the state assessments are fraught by changing frequently, coming late and things like that.
Yeah.
Are the internal assessment structures giving you feedback that our students at your school are on track for succeeding in that, in the next round? I mean, of course, you never know, but, so, because those come, that's a once a year test, or twice, you do it in.
Once.
Yeah, well, okay, so once. We are testing by quarter, trimesters?
So the high school does it a little bit different. At the middle school, we don't have like midterms but it's why it's more important than ever for us to come up with some internal common assessments, so that if you're in a math class on the Wildcat team versus like a math class on the Bengal team, if they're using common assessments, they can then look at like the proficiency rates, you know, for those assessments, and triangulate them with the data, you know, still taking into account the state assessments, as well as, and we're running our data bi-weekly, but at least at midterms and progress reports for proficiency. And so 3 would be perfect, like on grade level, a 2.8 would be close to proficiency here, with a 2.6 being passing, because most of them are year-long standards. If you're at a 2.6, you're approaching proficiency. So we take all 3 of those into account. There's definitely some discrepancies. Students that are doing well on the teacher-made assessments, passing math classes, and the data is not reflecting the same on the NWA for a variety of reasons. Some we're trying to figure out. Some is if a student doesn't want to sit and take a 50-minute math test at 7:30 in the morning, you know, and so that's why it's more important than ever that we're doing this work, so that we can collect our own data.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you so very much.
Thanks for.
You're welcome, I'm glad it worked.
All right. So, next will be a presentation by the Assistant Superintendent, Ms. Gillis.
I was gonna say, I'm gonna keep my computer awake.
You don't need Sandberg, it's just taking a while to get there.
Lots of extras.
And this will be on Atlas, which I remember hearing about back in curriculum and policy almost 2 years ago.
When we first
When we
decided
first
to purchase
decided,
it.
yeah. And so,
Can you?
You wanna share it with me? Share your, oh, you got it. Oh, no?
No,
Sorry.
hold on.
Share it with me.
Instead of,
I feel special.
it's an option, it's spinning. Okay, I'm just gonna share it with you.
Okay.
No,
There it is.
is it you or
That's
me?
not me. That's not
Okay.
me.
That's weird. All right, I'm trying to make it bigger. I had it all ready to go.
It's not moving.
Control
It's like
plus.
frozen.
Oh, it is.
Command plus.
What am I doing?
Command plus.
Carrie projected.
Yeah, it's not, it's like it's
Oh, you're
frozen.
frozen.
Hold on, let me see if I can get out of here. Or you can just boot me out like you did before. Yeah, 'cause it's not looking like
So you shared it with me?
Yep, I just shared it.
We have 4 text messages.
So many ways this can go wrong. Ta-da!
Now you can make it bigger.
I am, I will.
All right.
Is that big enough? Maybe one more? Okay.
Okay, all right, well, good evening. Hopefully this will work for your presentation. Yours will work. So I'm going to explain the Atlas platform, and I've been thinking about the best way to do it, and Joe's right. For those of you that were on the board, we actually had vendors share with us. I've become a lot more proficient with this platform, so I just wanted to share with you and highlight some things that were shared with the staff when we first looked at this way back a ways ago. So 2 things are defined up here. So curriculum platform is Atlas, and they are the ones that are preserving our curriculum. They are providing us ongoing support. They're helping us provide this place where we can store our standards, our learning activities, assessments. That's what Atlas is. And they're also helping us with the curriculum process, but that's really where our school is leading the work. Our district, Jana mentioned, we have 3 content areas that are currently under review and revision. And so we have started using the Atlas platform, and the staff are reporting much more confidence once they're in there and starting to use it. It's become very easy to look at, and we figured out how to run reports so that we know what is happening in there in terms of looking at alignment and just pieces that are really going to help us. So the reason that we looked to bring this program on board, this platform on board, is outlined really down below in the what is staying the same and what is new. So what's staying the same is the teachers will continue to review the main learning results for their content area, prioritize the standards, develop common assessments, and then I aligned this with our strategic plan long-term goal number 3, curricular and programs, what we learn. So what's new is that Atlas is giving us a place to house our curriculum. It's one location, no more searching for Google Docs or folders or drives, because that, when new teachers would start, inevitably during August, I would get a lot of emails about where is the math curriculum, where is grade 6 science and ELA, and it depended on who maybe was the owner, and we spent some time trying to track it down. So this is much, much better. What's changing is that we will have a pre-K to 12 vertically aligned curriculum for each content area. What's going away is wondering what students have been taught in the years before, because teachers will get in students and students will insist they did not learn anything. But now teachers will have the ability to go in and see what actually was taught the year before and when it was taught. Also, there will be a public-facing platform that will be part of the implementation. It will focus on stage 1, and I'm going to address some of those questions because I know those have been things that we are wondering about, or wonderings. So some additional questions. Joe was right. We began during the 2019-2020 school year. We started with social studies. We know what happened during that school year. Everything came to a pause. Using Atlas has allowed us to continue this work and really to give us a common place to keep everything housed. What's the risk in not changing our process? I think I've shared with you the protocol that we're using this year, which involves full release days, which I know is a hardship for the principals, but I appreciate their support because I feel like we're much further along now than we are in the process with our 3 content areas than we would be if we were waiting for full workshop days. So without changing it, we would have had a longer implementation time, difficulty aligning the curricula, stuff's all over the place. So our success will look like when we have a full pre-K to 12 curriculum and the associated materials, as well as a public-facing site for families and communities to see stage 1 of our work, which will include the essential standards, essential questions, and learning targets. We have not figured out, we have the ability to design the public-facing platform the way that we want it, and I'm going to show you a few samples tonight, which I did at last month's curriculum committee meeting. This work will be completed, never. If we do it right, it's always going to be a continuous process, so it will never be done, because we'll continue to review and revise, and it just will become part of what we do in this district as educators. The public-facing site within Atlas is scheduled to be built during the next school year. We need to have some content to put into it, and we don't have that yet, so I'm hoping as we get further along, we will have that built. And then, Carrie, if you want to scroll down, there are some sample public sites there, and then I want to... Yep, you can click on that one. And I'm just going to look on here so I can...
I might have asked this in the previous meeting, but is there nobody else in Maine doing it? Are we one of the first in Maine?
I don't know. There are other districts that are using it, but these are public sites that these districts have given permission to Atlas to publicize. So I did not, actually it's 16 is using it.
We used it in 16, but I left similar to here in terms of like, we were gangbusters and then everything kind of shut down, and so I don't know where they are at that work now. I know Augusta used it because that's how we learned about it, is we had an assistant superintendent come down from Augusta to join our district, and that's how we learned about it from her.
So by public sites, these are just the ones that these districts have given permission to Atlas to publish them on their website as public sites. So this is what this site looks like. It may be a little bit difficult to see the word, but you can see there's a picture there on the right-hand side. They put some district links and some people that are involved in the curriculum work. And then
Very happily.
They're very happy with it.
Still happy.
People are pretty happy with the work we're doing. So Carrie, if you can scroll down a little bit, and then on the top.
Scroll down.
She is all the way down.
I'm at the bottom. Let her touch it.
Yeah, I meant scroll down the other way.
Oh.
You're scrolling down, so it's going up. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, so you can see here all courses, and I realize that this is teeny tiny, so once I find something, I will see. But what you have here for the district is you can see their courses, and then once you click on a course, and this will be the public facing. So they publish their unit calendar, so you can see when these different units are taught throughout the year. And these will be flexible because teachers will have, like if we have no school for a week, teachers might need to extend a unit or something. I'm just saying that.
Cursed us.
She's cursed us with another big snowstorm.
Sorry, there's no snow.
The
Okay.
ice storm of.
So then this is what's public on this site, is they have overarching questions and enduring understandings. And the overarching question is, in what ways can relationships between variables be represented and studied? And then they put in a graphic organizer.
Wow.
They felt would be helpful.
Yes. Somebody thought that was going to be helpful.
There's a lot of arrows there.
To all those parents out there trying to
They
make
have
sense
a lot
about
of
your
words
work.
around a unit
There's
abstract.
A lot of words.
And then when you come down here, you can see the expectations or the standards. We would call them essential standards. We're identifying ones that we want essential, and then the students would be assessed on it. And so these different areas, like this is just one, and then they have essential questions, key concepts, skills that students will use, and they have assessment tasks published. I'm not quite sure why, because that we will not be publishing our assessments, and this is like one of the only ones. But I was just trying to give you a couple of different examples. This one right here. So this first page that you open to is very different. It's just words. But then when you go up to all courses, they have all of their courses here. And then if you get into, let's go to accelerated French and see what's happening there. So yes, you could see there, and then you click on here, and they have their standards within their speaking and listening language, but they also, you can pull in other standards once you maybe are starting to integrate some of the work. And then there's enduring understandings, content, the skills for the students, essential questions, and then some sites even put this in, like down at the bottom, they will put differentiation. So for English language learners, for students with IEPs or 504s, and then for students that are identified for gifted and talented, they might have some sample differentiation there. Okay, and then I wanted to show you what our website currently looks like now, because we have made some updates. So this is our curriculum page. There's an updated message from me. The desks are going away. We are going to have student photos there, hopefully by early next week. And then if anyone that was interested went in here, they would be able to click on, like if they wanted to see what the main learning results are for English language arts, they would click here, and it would take them to this page, and then people could navigate around. So we have all the content areas here, including the main early learning development standards. I don't know why that's worded that way.
It's for the pre-K kids.
Yeah, this is for pre-K and K. So all of those are located in one spot, and hopefully, like I said, this will be updated next week, just to make sure that people see what we're currently working on.
So this section of the website had been neglected. When we opened it up and looked at it, I was like, oh my God, empty rows of desks. How uninspiring. So we gotta do some work here.
So, I don't know if anyone has any questions. I plan to continue to update you, and then once we are able to come to a spot where we're able to share the curriculum, we will use Atlas as the platform to show you. Either we'll run a report, we'll figure out the best way to share it with all of you. But that is my update on Atlas.
We are currently actively building our own Atlas curriculum.
Yes.
And eventually our website is going to transition into something like those examples we just saw.
It would probably be a link to Atlas with like an explanation, yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Is there an Atlas app? Like, you know, how we have Power School and Google
I
Classroom?
don't know, I'm gonna look into that though. I bet there is.
So when a parent looks at the public-facing aspect of this, they're not drilling down into the lesson plan level. They're looking at, it's more like the syllabus for this is what's gonna be covered this semester, this
Yep.
year, whatever. Okay.
Yep, and they will also be able to see, I think, I mean, it will be a team decision, but I think, you know, you have the opportunity to get the additional information of seeing the unit map. A lot of what we're doing, like when we're working on health and PE, our first and second graders are working on some of the skills all year long. So I don't know that that would be helpful for people to see different colored units all year long. But when you get to the upper grades, it may be helpful for them to see, oh, this is what is being taught during the first trimester, so they can see what units. But that will be a team decision. It will be uniform, though. We will decide what we want our public-facing side to look like. But yes, it will have like that higher level syllabus look to it.
Will that be, I would encourage effort to be put into writing that stuff in plain speak as opposed to education speak. You look at some of the main learning results, and it's a little dense for someone who's just like, so what is this really about, you know? So anyway, I just want to toss that out there.
Yep.
It kind of looked like some of those examples were a little.
So when we pick the standards, we'll have to pick the standards as they're written, but you're right. We will be able to have like essential questions, and then particularly the learning targets for students will be written as I can statements. Those will be like, I can add 2-digit numbers. I can like, so those will be much more, I understand what you're saying. So we will do our best.
Atlas being well received so far by staff? Or is it, I mean, I know new software can be challenging, so.
The staff that are working with it, I would say, are overwhelmingly impressed because they have been writing things by hand, like just to try to figure out and to try to word, like Anthony said, to try to word an essential question or a learning target can be really tricky. Atlas has a neat little magic wand that when you click on it, it gives you a whole list of variety of options, and then the teams are having discussions about which ones they feel fit better. And I'm hearing like, oh, I wish we knew about this before, this is saving us so much time, and we're able to make further progress. So I think the teams that are working are pretty pleased with their progress and starting to gain some traction in terms of feeling like some satisfaction that we're not just doing the same old thing again.
You've led me to another question, which was, so it sounds like we have a small group of teachers working on it now, but eventually it will be like teacher-wide ability to get into this? Because it's going to have to be an ongoing.
Yes, everybody will have varying levels. The teams right now, the standards writing teams are the ones that actually have the writing access, because not everyone will have editing access, but everyone will have viewing access or have varied levels of access to get in, because you're right, everybody will need to. I mean, everyone's in the system now, they just don't know it.
Sure.
They're there waiting to be activated.
Sure.
So yes, and we'll be doing training when we get to that part.
This is a per year subscription?
Yes.
Is the data ours, or does the data become theirs?
Like if we stopped,
Yeah.
ooh, I feel like I've asked that question in the past, like in my prior life, but.
It's like, if it's in Google, it's Google's data,
Yes.
it's not yours.
Yeah.
So we will be able to run reports, and actually the cost, I think, for what we're getting and the level of support.
No, but I think like if we build
No, I
our
know.
curriculum here and then we decide there's a better platform,
Yeah.
can we get it all out and move it to the next one?
Or if there's a catastrophic failure or
Oh,
something.
Lord. Again, a week off of school, catastrophic, like doomsday happening here.
Phase 3/4.
I know, that's scary. Can we turn that TV off? It's starting to freak people out. We won't need it anymore, so.
That is a really good question. I will find out how it would be pulled out. Because I know they've spent time talking to us about at the end of each year, they do what they call a rollover, and so it's saved, but it is ours. Just have to make sure we get it.
Well,
Thank you.
all right.
Just,
Oh, go ahead,
I
Peter.
just started thinking about that. It is ours, but we're not 100% sure that it's solely ours.
I think it's worth asking, like,
So, but are the information we put in there, they have no other ability to use that information at all?
Not unless we give them permission to share our public site.
So any of the information in there, they can't use in any form or fashion?
No, you mean like take what we
I
put in
don't
for
know.
standards or?
lesson plans, materials.
Whatever we put in there for
Don't we have
information.
a
Data privacy agreement.
Yeah.
But that just protects our students, yes. I will ask that question, but yes, we were given that information, but I will ask again.
All good points. Anything else? All right. Thank you, Teresa.
Thanks.
Thank you.
We'll now move on to a presentation on the Maine Integrated Youth Health Survey, MIYHS, by Superintendent Carrie Med.
So I am not gonna say a whole lot. I've got a handout for you. And then I've actually invited, community member Vicki Wegman. Thank you so much, Vicki, for sticking with us, who is a longtime public health educator in Lewiston schools, as well as in Healthy Androscoggin, and I don't know, you can say other places, but you live in Leeds, so thank you very much for joining us. And so she's got a lot of knowledge of the MIAS and what this data does. So I've just given you fact sheets about it and some general information about how student data is protected and what the purpose of the survey is. I've also given you the letter, the sample letter, the template letter that goes home to parents because the survey is optional. It's optional throughout, so even if the parent doesn't pull their child out, the child can pull themselves out. They don't have to answer any questions they don't want to answer, so it's completely voluntary. And then I've given you a couple of sheets that have just data about the last time the survey was conducted, which I think was 2023. We participated in that, in terms of just sort of health and well-being of students across Maine. The survey is given at the high school and middle school time during crew and HPT, so it doesn't take from school class time from any content areas. And for 5th and 6th graders, it would happen during like morning meeting time or something like that. It doesn't happen during academic time. So I thought it was really important for us to understand how this data is used statewide, within our county, within our community, and I thought Vicki was going to be the best one to really talk about that, having sort of been looking at this data for years. So I invited her to help us learn about it. So Vicki, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Okay, I'm going to perch right now.
Perch.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm Vicki Wigman. I am a health promotion coordinator for Healthy Androscoggin for the past 2 years, and 35 years prior to that I worked for the Lewiston School Department as a school counselor, and I also was substance abuse prevention coordinator and counselor. I took charge of getting the MIAS accomplished. I am a community member. I live in Leeds. My 3 kids were all almost in their 30s, graduated from MSAD52 schools, and I've got a granddaughter in pre-K. So yes, my understanding was that you had some questions. I will answer, everything that I can, and if I can't, I'll get an answer and get it back to you. The Maine Integrated Youth Health Survey is our only means in the state, and when I say our, it's not a Healthy Androscoggin thing. It's created through the Maine Department of Ed and the Maine Centers for Disease Control. This survey existed for many, many years. Prior to, I think, 2011, it was the Maine Youth Drug and Alcohol Use Survey. They've made every effort to consolidate anything they're hoping to get data on into this one survey. And what do they want data on? It's our only data set on health and well-being indicators in young people. Yes, that can be substance use, tobacco use, seatbelts, how many fruits and vegetables do you eat, how much screen time, do you feel you're being bullied, do you have thoughts of harming yourself? So really a very broad list of health and well-being indicators. How is it used? At Healthy Androscoggin, we use it for a number of different programs and securing funding. I know my main job is doing tobacco prevention in schools. So part of that is utilizing data and looking at where we need to, boost up education, where things seem to be being effective, how are we going to approach the issue around vaping. So that's what my primary role is with Healthy Androscoggin, but I know other colleagues have used it around nutrition, how to prepare healthy meals, how to get more exercise into someone's life. When I worked in Lewiston, pretty routinely, I would field calls, hey, can we have access to your data? Now, where do you get the data? The superintendent only gets a username and password to access the data. And I know the police would frequently ask us for, hey, do you have any data on blah, blah, blah? Sure, look through it. Look through the data. If it's going to help you get some program in the community, that would be great. Maybe other nonprofits, maybe specific groups of teaching staff had something they wanted to do or a grant they wanted to apply for. Or maybe they wanted to look at, hey, how are 10th graders doing in terms of getting adequate physical activity? And this is really our only means in the state of looking at how are our kids doing. So Healthy Androscoggin over time has asked each district, can we have permission to use your data to see where we might need programs? Does Lisbon Middle School have need of a particular program around stress management? What can we do to help you out with that? Or hey, Oak Hill, you've been doing, some pretty awesome things in your PE department. What are they? Can we share that with other districts? So that's something that Healthy Androscoggin has been doing, but again, this data is used broad and wide. I want to see what else I put here. Leveraging funding, looking at making programming decisions. I know someone had a question about biographical questions like gender, race, sexual orientation. And those questions are asked because they're standard demographic variables on any kind of population survey. But one example of how they might be used, in looking at mental health data from 2023, when asking, during the past 12 months, did you ever feel so sad or hopeless almost every day for 2 weeks or more in a row that you stopped doing usual activities? Well, 35% of students said yes, which is quite a few. But they then drilled down into the data and saw that 2 times as many females were answering that question in the affirmative. And they also noticed some difference between Hispanic and non-Hispanic students. Well, what do you do with that? Well, you look at what's going on in your school and community. What could we do to help decrease those numbers? Are they population interventions? Are they targeted interventions at specific interests or focuses of students? I know way back in Lewiston, we noticed that 10th grade females had an increased report of using inhalants. So what did we do with that? We added more education. We added more education for staff to be aware, for young people to know of the harms, for counseling staff to be asking more questions. So we used that data in real time. What you get back, I just printed these from home, is there's a report you can get on how many students took the survey, how many answered a certain question a certain way. Was that higher or lower than, statistically, than they answered 2 years prior or than other students in Maine answered? And that's helpful information as well. There's nowhere on the survey that name is put. Students do not identify themselves at all. They use passive consent, so you as a parent get a letter, hey, we're doing this Maine Integrated Youth Health Survey. It is up to you to say, I do not want Vicki Wegman taking part in that. And I know in Lewiston, I was the one that kept those lists. I had said to secretarial staff, I'm happy to talk to people about it, that's fine. You don't want your child taking it, that's fine. Your kid's name is on the list. Please remind them also that when the survey comes out that they don't have to take it. And a student can say, I don't want to take this survey. So totally anonymous. There is no way to track what student did what survey. I know it used to be paper and pencil, now it's electronic. But I would tell teachers, you pass out an envelope, a kid puts their survey in it, you don't touch the envelope. And the last kid licks it and shuts it. Nobody sees the surveys and they all go into one specific area. So there's no way to know who answers what on any of these. What else? I know one thing we've done at Healthy Androscoggin, and the state does it as well, we can come back to a school board and give a presentation. Here's what your data looked like. Here are some things that are pretty cool you might be interested in. Here's some concerns you might want to think about. We've been doing some education on alternatives to suspension. If a youngster violates a school drug or alcohol policy, tobacco policy, how do we provide an intervention that doesn't, put them out of school, that gives them an opportunity to rethink the behavior, get some assistance if they need to. So it does inform some helpful programming. Any questions I can answer specifically? I have a lot of time administering it, hearing people ask me questions. I was on my computer today with an administrator, I'm really on the fence. This is what I'm thinking and this is what I'm thinking, but if it's really important to you, I'll do it. And I'm like, well, yeah, it's important to me, or I wouldn't have asked, but I want you to understand how it works, and why it really should be important to as many people as possible. And you've participated, I have record back to 2011, and really strong numbers of people that participate. And so what? Well, so what? That feeds county data, and that feeds state data. And also we look at the public health districts. So we're Androscoggin, Franklin, and Oxford County is our public health district. Yeah?
Is the same questionnaire provided to all ages, or are there three separate?
There are three separate questionnaires based on age. So there's the grade 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 12. Parents are able to view sample questions. I always had a packet in student services, and a parent could come in and look at them. I probably wasn't supposed to, but I did it anyway. I'm like, here, sample questions, bring them home, look at them, it's fine. I wasn't really concerned about that, but they are separate questions at each level. They've streamlined the process. They used to say 45 minutes to do the survey, and now they're saying 30 minutes. And my experience has been that it's usually less than that for most students. We had, as you can imagine, we had a lot of different language issues in Lewiston, so I went to great pains to get permission letters translated in many, many, many languages. And if a parent wasn't able to receive a permission letter translated in their language, I excluded their youngster from the survey. I felt they had to have, due process to be informed about the survey. I had parents that just said, I just don't want my kid taking it. It's none of your business, or I don't want him seeing these questions. And yeah, you're right, it's none of my business, but I'm not gonna know what your own, student answers, and that's fine. That's your parental prerogative to say, I don't want my child taking part in this. I did have, and it's like everything, you build relationships. I would spend a good amount of time with teachers talking to them about why it was important. So they could say to their students, hey, this is what it is, this is what it does. We'd love for you to take part, but if you don't want to, you don't have to. And then they just need to sit quietly and read or do homework.
Yeah, and I just want to put this in context too, just in that is that we're volunteering as a district to do this, and that's ultimately why we're having this presentation tonight. I think there was some question of whether we should be or not be, volunteering to do this, and that's kind of the context of why we're hearing all about it tonight. So, Alex, go ahead.
What is the thought process behind doing it during school hours as opposed to sending it home to be done, off of instructional time?
Yep. So I do feel that schools have been doing a great job of not using instructional time, but the biggest reason is privacy. Having the survey administered in school and a student sitting at their own space ensures that they are answering the questions from their own personal self. I had a situation once where a teacher was walking around answering questions. I said, you really can't do that. You can't be saying, oh, this is what they're asking. If the kiddo doesn't understand the question, then they don't answer the question. You can't be watching what they're doing or anything else. So I think it's mostly so that we have some assurance that it's pure data. It's coming from that kiddo who's being given the survey.
Anyone else? Questions for Vicki? Yes.
I guess not for Vicky, probably more for Carrie, so
Okay.
I'll wait.
Oh,
Go
go ahead. Yeah.
So this letter is sent home to all kids?
In the grades that are taking this.
Yeah, the grades are taking it. It gets put on, like Jana had given me a copy of the one that they had used last year. And so they use it, put it on letterhead, put in the appropriate, names and things like that. I used to do this as a principal. I would sign it myself and make sure it went home. But
I have a
it's
copy if you
that
want it.
consistent letter. Yeah, I gave them a copy.
Great.
Yeah, so it's consistent across all the schools.
And if it's not signed and returned, the student doesn't
No, they have to opt out. So the parent can opt a child out, otherwise they're gonna take it, but the student can opt themselves out as well.
Something I did with that too is if it was mailed home, which it should be. I know in Lewiston, I didn't use email because there was a significant percentage of emails that were not accurate. And I felt that that wasn't being, honest and really giving parents an opportunity. So if I mailed this out and it was returned as undeliverable, I had that student on a list that they couldn't take it because I had every reason to believe the parent wasn't aware of it.
So that's a different policy or thought than what this district has. We have an opt-out policy, or this child is taking the survey.
No, this survey is an you called it a passive.
Passive consent.
The survey is designed that way.
Yeah.
So it is an opt-out. So everyone gets notified. Did you guys mail it, email it? I'm looking at.
Both. Yeah, we did it through email, and then like the verbal message letting them know to expect it. Similar to what you were saying, part of the tracking system for like school-wide emails that we send out, it lets us know if there's like undeliverable email addresses, and we've been working on that because that's almost how all of our communication goes through. I'd say last year, I think probably between 10 and 15 families chose to have their student not take it, and I'd have to look into it, but my guess would be at least a handful of students just weren't feeling it that day.
Yeah. Evan, do you remember from your?
We've done it both ways. Most recently, I think we've done it via school messenger.
And even in at Lewiston High School, that's a very large school, probably the last year that I was there may have been 10 parents who said, I don't want my child taking it. And it was for a variety of reasons. There was, there are a couple kiddos, sometimes they just do not have the cognitive ability to understand the questions and answer them. And you can't sit there, okay, well, Jana, is it this, this, or this? You can't do that. And then some parents have said, just don't want my student taking it. But it was a fairly small number. The list of letters that were returned undeliverable was a little bit more significant. But we still had pretty good participation. And in the classes, I feel that most students were interested in taking it out of curiosity, if nothing else.
So I'll just offer one thing. Vicki was very helpful to us when we revised, completely overhauled sort of the tobacco policy 2 years ago, because we had a very high suspension rate. Vaping was taking off, so I'm actually really interested in seeing the data around tobacco use and vaping, because we've done a lot of things differently. We've installed vape detectors, we've changed sort of the response to that, reduced the suspension, so I'm curious to know what kids tell us, and this would be really the only way we would know that.
Yeah, and it's quite possible too, it's just, I could talk about vaping all day, I won't. But I could, I'm very interested in it, I know a lot about it, and I just had been immersed in it for so many years, and that's such a challenging issue with youth right now.
So
it's just so challenging and very little to give them to help them stop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Will we be seeing the data from this, like, will that be shared with us?
We can, yeah, absolutely.
I think it'd be kind of neat to see.
Yep. When
And
does it come back
I think Carrie and
around?
Teresa know you're welcome to, involve us in helping to present, once you have your stuff. I know the person I've been contacting at the state, she's new in the job, and I had said the state needs to do a better job helping people to understand why this is so important. Yeah, we do, and I think she will. Truthfully, it takes way longer than I wish it did to come back, but probably, I don't know, end of the school year, maybe beginning of the summer, it really depends. They have pretty firm dates when they want the survey done, and I'm kind of a rule follower, I tried to get that done, but I know they will flex it for districts that need to do it at a different time. And like I said to this one administrator today, hey, listen, this is what I'm answering about your questions. You make your decision, and I'll help you out in any way, and know that there is flexibility around the time frame. But probably realistically, end of the school year. maybe beginning of the summer.
And it makes sense to look at it, because we're looking at all kinds of other
Oh, you
data
really
too,
should,
right?
yeah.
So, yeah, so it absolutely makes sense to do
This
it.
sounds like a review that would happen in the fall, though, when we
Mm.
come back, though, as opposed to
Yep.
just before we leave, right? Yeah. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
assuming the timing won't work out. Of
It
course,
depends, like if we got it
Get it
back
in
in
by the end
May,
of
it could be,
June.
but it may
Yeah.
be that it's part of that fall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now that it's electronic, that speeds up their time, and it's paper and pencil. Yeah.
This fact sheet, this is on the commission slip, when they get it?
I don't know. Is
No,
the
I
fact
just
sheet
provided
going
that
out?
as part of the handout.
The backs.
Oh, yeah, no.
Oh, the
Yes,
ones on
that,
alcohol
with the
and
letter?
cannabis?
Yes,
Yeah.
Yes,
no,
I
on
think-
the survey fact sheet, the one that has a link to the survey and answers
Yes.
questions.
I
Does
think
that
that's
go out
part of
as
it,
well?
yes, yes,
Okay.
sorry. I thought you were talking about a different sheet. Yeah,
So
the-
the link to the, where it says, can I see the questions my
Yeah.
student will be asked, that is the actual survey, so
Yes.
parents can look at it.
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
Yeah, and I actually checked that survey myself the other day, just getting ready for this, and found all 3 versions of it very easily.
And what they used to do is they used to have A, B, C, and D versions. So they would give, a quarter of the students got A, B, C, D, and really what it was the same questions, but mixed up in different ways. A whole classroom would have the same form of the survey, but it was basically the same questions. And again, as was said earlier, a student doesn't have to answer any question they don't want to.
Yes.
So I can see how this data could be useful to Department of Health and Human Services. I am less convinced that it's useful in having students meet the main learning results. That's our job. And I understand that you're saying that this will not be offered during instructional time, but if we have time during the day that is not instructional time, that is not nevertheless being utilized to help students meet those standards, and if our students are performing as badly as they are on those standards, then I just wonder why now? Why should we be doing this? Why hasn't the DHHS figured out a different delivery method that lets the schools concentrate on getting those students on track so that they're ready and proficient in those standards? So I would be interested to hear some thoughts about, well, this is how this is going to help kids in their English learning standards. This is how it's going to help kids in their math standards, social studies.
I see a hand raised over there.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, we kind of always take the approach like Maslow before Bloom, like, we have to make sure our kids' basic needs are met before they're gonna be able to like, successfully access some of the education. Some of the stuff, agreeable, might not be completely relevant to learning environment, but quite a bit of it is, especially around, for us, it's like the student mental health piece and making sure that when students are here, one of our biggest goals is to make sure that like every student here has an adult that they can sort of trust or connect with. I shared my report like around some of the enrichments and extracurriculars we're doing, because it's like one of the only opportunities that students have for perhaps even an opportunity to be part of a group or with peers. And so there are pieces of the data that drive some of the decisions we make, admittedly not around some of the academics, but around some of the like social emotional goals that we have here, which is what get kids to school. And then the academic piece comes because they're here.
I will say though, health and PE are required. They're part of the main learning results, and this information is really helpful for those curriculum development, because where you spend your time, like there's a lot of standards and you can't necessarily do all of them really well, but this data is helpful in terms of like, oh, we need to shift a little bit. The kids are having this issue, and vaping would be the perfect example of that, and so we need to develop some instructional time and instructional materials around dealing with that. I mean, in my former role as a principal, we did an entire day on sort of the impact on vaping on your physical body, and we planned lessons across all the content areas. Like, it was that much of a crisis, and I think that was true here as well. And that data is helpful in designing that. So that is part of the curriculum and instruction that they have to get that's required.
And I feel like part of that too is, and I forget what the actual standards are, but how do you discern accurate information versus a guy at my table in the cafeteria told me this? How do you look at accurate information? And if somebody were to utilize the data and say, well, you know, Leavitt Area High School, we had 366 students who answered this among our population, and 17.7% of them said that they had vaped at least once in the past 30 days. And then again, I could talk about vaping all day long, but somebody who is among that 17.7%, they are having some unique challenges in the learning environment. They're not able to sit in class for 80 minutes. They're not able to focus on the task at hand because they're struggling with a dependence. So I do understand the question. The young people in school are our best opportunity to survey as many of them as possible, whereas if we did it just out in the community, well, you know, where are we gonna do that? And well, at the doctor's office, there are plenty of kids that don't get regular, you know, medical care. Well, we're gonna do it at such and such. This is really an opportunity. So our task is to make it as relevant as possible to the learning environment, to the young people as individuals and the community. But I think it also does inform some circumstances about why kids might not be able to avail themselves to their learning. Do I have at least one adult in the building who I feel thinks is unimportant? Am I being bullied in school? Am I feeling so sad that I have not done my regular stuff for over 2 weeks at a time? Those inform how well your kids are going to be able to access their education as well.
Jamie?
I was gonna say, like, you know, I think the role of a public school and the role of public education and the mission of our board is to provide excellence in education, but students will also become responsible citizens and lifelong learners. And I think, you know, the reason why we invest in our public schools is to help our community and to make our community healthy, where we put out citizens that are able to give back to our community in roles, and that includes having healthy citizens, citizens without addiction, citizens that are eating healthy, that are exercising, that are able to go out, perform their job roles, and give back to the community. So I can see why this survey would be helpful. And then you said, why now? But I think we've been doing this for a while, right?
You said 2011?
So yeah, for the Maine Integrated Youth Health Survey back until 2011, and before that it was the MyDOS. So before that, still, it is something that you've been participating in for a long time. And in terms of all the other county schools, I have one community out of all of the communities that I still have 2 schools to talk with them, elementary schools, about participating. Other than that, everyone else is participating. I like that because it gives us a really good county data set, so we can do our best by our young people and their families. And I know that's still even, you can take me away from teens, but you can't take it out of my heart. I just love them and miss them, and I like them to be as healthy and well as possible, and this helps us to do that. Yep.
Peter?
To clarify, we've been doing it since 2011, or 2011 was the last time we did it?
No, since.
Since every 2 years.
So do we have cumulative data?
It's not cumulative, it's every 2 years. So the last report was 2023, prior to that was 2021.
So, but still,
We update
the
all
district
time.
gets that information?
Yes, correct.
So
Yes.
are we, or is somebody in the district reviewing it, saying, okay?
I know I reviewed it when I got here. I'm not sure
To
what the habit has
see how,
been,
like,
so.
we're talking about vaping, or to see, you know, how And to go towards Kyle's question, so basically there's information from last year that we could have a report on where we stand as in last time this was
Yep.
around.
100%.
In my
So we wanted-
dream district, I would have, and I did, I had this committee that met, and the last time we met was the day before school shut down for COVID. It was this multidisciplinary group of community members, there was somebody from, you know, the state and several different buildings, and we met to comb through the data. Because I think if there can be a group, a small group of people that look right at this and say, hey, you know, what's this, what can we do about that? I think that would be fantastic, and we can certainly help to provide some technical assistance around that. Yeah, I printed reports before I, you know, came from what I had most recently for Levitt and Tripp. And they do compare, each report gives you, here's, say, 2023 data, here's how it compared to 2022, and here's how it compared to the state data. And then it does the whole lower than average, higher than average statistically. And those are absolutely worth looking at.
If we wanted a report or a presentation of how we've been progressing over the years relative to, well, prior years, but other schools in the district, is that something we go through Carrie to get, or we, as a board, could ask?
Yeah.
Like,
I have the reports, so we can log in and get them and look at them. I like I said, I looked at the 2023 one when I first got here. I would defer to, you know, Evan's been here longer, I don't know, Jana, if you would have been here just for the first report, right? Whether or not how it was used, you know, by the high school prior to that. But yes, easily can provide that information.
So
I don't know if
have
it makes sense to wait until we have this data and then sort of go back, or
Have we been using them?
I defer to Jana for the last report and Evan for the last report and prior to.
So we have used it in the past, we have not used the most recent one, but historically we've used it in developing English goals. We should.
Alex?
I would definitely like to see it's 2023, right, 5
Yep.
years? I think it would be beneficial for us to see even just that year, you know, maybe not necessarily going back a long ways, but I think it would be better than waiting until maybe next year.
I think it's great to see how it's reported out.
Yeah.
And then I do think too, if it were me, I would be saying, hey, person at the state, can you make us some, you know, visuals so we can see, you know, what does this look like compared over time? We all want things that are not great to get better. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes they don't. You know, I know there was a lot about vaping getting better. That's not what I'm hearing, you know, in schools. And then I also had to always remind myself the dream would be zero, that there would be none. And falling into the kind of habit of, oh, all right, well, it's only 15%, that's better than it was before. That is true, but you never want to take your eye off that ball. I'm also very aware that your time is finite. We have X amount of time to accomplish many things. And frankly, prevention really takes sort of a luxury position in a lot of school districts, and it's just by necessity. You know, they don't have the extra people or time to put at preventing some of these issues, and then we've got something in our community that's really hard to change in the other direction, and certainly looking at the topic of vaping, that's a big one. But I think it's a great idea to look at how it gets reported out and what you might realistically look for. I have one school, just to say, if they had a class, if they got data from a population that was really, really small, they would not report it. They would have a little symbol that says this data can't be reported because the sample's too small. If a sample's too small, they worry that people might be able to, in some way, identify, you know, who it was. If you have a class with 2 people in it, and a guy and a girl, and the guy is drinking, you know, you're gonna know who that is. That's a foolish example, but just that if the population is too small to ensure confidentiality, they don't report it. Most schools don't have that happen, you know, the population sizes.
That was actually a concern, because when I was looking at the questions earlier, is there any sort of correlation between all the questions that are answered? So like, Carrie, you can't see it all.
I don't see any individual number, any individual
So
answers.
it's because, you know,
I only get the totals.
especially in rural Maine, you know, we might have one person who speaks one of these odd languages as
Yeah.
home.
Yeah.
So if it correlates to any other questions they answer, you automatically know.
Yeah.
So that isn't an issue, okay.
No, I just get the overall. That's what the report has.
And even a lot of these, like they'll say how many males and females took the survey, but on this actual big report out, it doesn't say, like 5.2% reported that they had smoked cigarettes in the last 30 days. This was for middle school. And it doesn't say it was this many females and this many males, it's just the overall number. But the state has those numbers, and you are able to ask for more of a drilled down report, as long as it doesn't come close to violating someone's confidentiality. You know, when they look at all that, again, in Lewiston, we had a significant population of kids who didn't have the English skills to take it. So for a good period of time, we didn't have data on what was happening in that population, because you can't proctor it by reading the question out loud in their language and giving them the choices, because you risk seeing them, oh, he put his pencil down when they said A. So that was kind of a hole. I don't think that's an issue you deal with as yeah.
Well, I'm just hearing from several of you that digging into this data as an agenda item in the future is something people are interested in. Just maybe a quick straw poll, if you raise your hand if you're interested in doing that. Yeah.
I think it's a great idea.
Is there folks that are around the table that are opposed to spending more time looking at this data? Okay. Yeah.
And if anybody has any lingering questions, I'm happy to, you know, if they come up over time, if you get them to Carrie, I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you
If
very
I don't know
much.
the answer, I'll get it for you.
Well, it wasn't a question. I just think the parent choice aspect is something we shouldn't overlook. And you had said that if you had stuff that was mail that was returned, they went on a list that they weren't able to take the survey because the parents weren't aware. I think maybe district-wide there should be direction on making sure, it's done a couple different ways. I know that my 5th grader is gonna miss a field trip someday because I don't get the permission slip, and I know for sure I won't
Oh, it can never
I
go
know
in
for
the
sure I
bag.
won't get this letter. If it goes in his bag, it's
Yeah.
not coming to me. So I think that's something we shouldn't lose sight of, is that
Agreed.
we make sure that, email, physical letter,
Yep.
whatever, just
Yep.
make sure that goes out.
Agreed.
And I would make sure I would go up to the teacher, like, look at me. Vicki Wigman cannot take this survey.
Right.
Repeat. I think it's important.
Anthony?
I'd just like to observe that it's interesting to me that we've been taking this survey since at least 2011. We've had falling scores over that time. And so I don't see a correlation between improving our students' ability to meet the main learning results and this test or survey. I would be surprised if the survey yielded information that was useful, novel and useful. Our teachers are gonna know that there's a problem. There's plenty of scuttlebutt that goes around that people hear, so that it's a known issue in at least in the schools that I've been guests in. There are issues like vaping that they're just known because the teachers and the administrators and support staff hear the students talking about it. So, again, I just question the appropriateness of utilizing extremely valuable school time for something that essentially is for a different audience than school staff. This is really information for public health officials and people who work in that realm. I will get off of my soapbox.
I have one statistic here because I know in my career, and others have in here as well, that in the last survey, 2023, 18.6% of students had reported that in the past 12 months they had seriously considered attempting suicide. And I think of the number of kids that I would hear about, either by listening or other people would hear about, it would not have been anywhere near that 18.6%. And that number's something I would sure want to know about as school administrators to think about how I would implement other actions in the population. And I don't think, respectfully, that young people are necessarily that overt with their conversations about the fact that they're vaping or doing other things. Some are right out there, and some secretly have lives that are leading them to a really tough place. And an ability to know more about that through this survey, I think is just a huge win. But I lived this for my whole career, so I think I have a little bit of a different vantage point on it. I think it's super important how you achieve your success goals and keep kids safe and alive.
I
for a half hour time.
Personally think the example you used, Carrie, about using data perhaps from this survey to evaluate and see if we can see an effect of the tobacco and drug policies we put into place. Using that data to make our decisions as part of our strategic plan. And it does seem like it can be useful in some of the decisions we make. Even maybe we need more vape detectors, or things that PTB might need to consider. I think there's some practical aspects.
A real
of how
palette
we
of
can use
options
this.
from I detect it to how do I help somebody stop.
So, thank you, Vicki, very much.
Thank you
Happy
very
to
much,
answer any
Vicki.
questions
Appreciate you taking the
anytime.
time.
All right. This brings us to our last item on the agenda tonight, which is the discussion and approval of the fiscal year 26 budget development timeline. Is there a motion for that? Kyle, seconded by Peter. We have a copy in our packet. Carrie and I have this a few different times, but I have to say this has been mostly organized by Carrie, so I'll let you.
So I will remind you, last spring, we talked about the budget process because I had sort of led the board through it twice, sort of following the template that had been left for me. So we scheduled a discussion of like, all right, how'd this go? Do you guys want to do something different? So if you don't remember, you agreed you wanted to do something different, so that's what's reflected here. So we've already started. We've met with administrators and given them a deadline for before the holidays. That is moved up from the last 2 years. We meet with them, Gabby and I will meet with them individually, all the directors, administrators, Teresa, meet with them to look at their individual budgets of their particular areas. We will start February 27th. The timeline is relatively similar. So where it starts to look different, so on February 27th is we'll do initial presentation. So what I remember people saying, but Joe couldn't necessarily remember it very well, so I didn't want to totally cross it out. I thought I remembered people saying that having the administrators provide their executive summaries was like repetitive because they just presented it again. But I wanted to make sure that I sort of asked questions if you wanted to eliminate that. We would still have the written executive summary in the book. It just wouldn't be gone over by the administrator on that night when we do that initial presentation.
I think the discussion was too, is that if we had questions during that time frame, we can bring it up at that point and they can present it instead of having them present in a full.
Because it's just like the whole list of them, right, going through each of theirs, so.
Yeah.
So I thought I'd remembered that people sort of were like, let's skip that part because you'll have the written version. The initial presentation is like a shock and awe, right? Like, whoo, here it is, and everyone sort of looks, and then you go off for for a week or so to review and look more carefully, and then we start to go into the details. So the big change is, rather than doing like 4 workshops in a row before a school meeting, so I think we were going like 6 o'clock, and, well, for as long as it took, and then having a board meeting after, and there were 4 board meetings in a row, and
They went long.
that was a lot.
Yeah.
So now there'll be a board meeting in between. There's not, these budget workshops, there's no board meeting after them. It's just the budget workshop.
And I remember very distinctly talking about that as a group
Yeah.
and deciding we did want to do that. Meet at 5, concentrate this onto only a couple of days, get through the bulk of this in numerical order.
Yep, I did that in numerical order.
So that we could really focus this on a couple of bigger workshops. Like Carrie said, having executive summaries kind of ahead of those 2 big workshops, I didn't remember exactly where we stood on that, and I still am not sure if it would or wouldn't be helpful to get kind of that briefing before those workshops, but again, I don't know. I don't.
So I'm talking about the initial presentation, and then every administrator and director is there, and they get up with their executive summary and sort of reviews it. So that's the part.
Supplying the summary,
I found that to be super helpful, and we're talking about eliminating it.
That's what I thought the conversation was, so that's why it's on the table.
Did it happen twice?
So
Trying to
they
remember if
do the executive summary, and then when we get to their warrant article, they speak about the warrant article. So
Yeah.
it's not reading the executive summary, but in some cases, it's repetitive.
Because that's the part, because to me, it's almost more important for me anyways, when they have the opportunity right before their particular warrant article to, okay, this is what you're about to see, this is, some of my reasoning or our reasoning behind it, so forth and so on. The big one that's a whole week ahead of time or 2 weeks ahead of time kind of does get lost because, well, I don't know. I can see missing that one as long as they are giving us
Yeah, so
right
it's
at
just,
that time to clarify what we're about to go through line by line.
correct, so it would be either keeping that mini presentation in the very first board presentation from each administrator and director, and having them also present when we get to their warrant article, or just having the written summary for you to digest on your own, and then only the presentation at the warrant article. So that's really the choice.
Folks clear on that? Anyone with initial thoughts on whether we should have those advanced executive summaries or whether we just have them for the
Well,
one meeting?
we have the summaries.
Well,
You'll
we'll
have them in
written,
writing, is
right.
whether or not they're
Right.
spoken about,
Just
correct.
the presentation,
The talking
standing
part.
up in front of
Yeah.
us and giving a slide and presentation.
Dog and pony.
Yeah.
No, the one with the slides and everything is when we start with the warrant articles. The
Okay.
executive summary is just that piece of paper. Yeah.
Right.
Was that
Alex
first
doesn't know
one?
what he's choosing, he wasn't here.
Well, no, it was the first one, was there like a Q&A with that, or was
No.
it just them speaking to you?
It was just sharing,
Well, I
pretty
mean,
much.
There's always a
Oh, yeah.
chance to
There-
ask
yeah,
questions.
yeah.
Yeah, there's always a chance to ask questions, so,
And we can ask questions then, that
Right,
night
of
as well,
course.
if we
Right.
had them.
But you guys get the budget book on the 27th of February, so you won't have seen anything that's in it until you get a chance to look through it. Like, that's the night you get your budget book.
In my, I was on the town budget committee, and we had presentations given by the, departments. And we were able to ask questions back and forth. And then, if I remember right, I think we reviewed them at the next meeting. So having the review the same night we're kind of presented by them, I think makes it hard because, for one, it's a lot. If there are a lot of questions that get generated, then you have to review and act on that stuff. And I mean, obviously I haven't done it yet, but, 7 or 8 warrant articles in one night is obviously gonna be pretty heavy.
Nope, so it's just informational. That first night is just informational.
Well,
Like,
right, no, but if we don't have them the first night, and then we have them when they present their warrant article to us.
Yep.
You're
That-
getting the information, you're just not getting the presentation.
Well, right, I know that. I'm just saying, in my opinion, it might be beneficial to be able to ask some questions that maybe they have to come back to us with answers when we look at the individual ones. But That's me.
Anyone else? I still feel like we're split.
Whatever,
I know a little
we'll
bit.
do whatever's helpful and useful to you guys.
Maybe it's worth going around, just, again, straw polling this. Who thinks it would be helpful to have those executive summaries when we're given our books with an in-person presentation? And who thinks we should just have them just for the major workshop? Warren, it's still cool. I mean,
I don't need them printed, I can read it.
How many
Yeah.
people didn't raise their hand?
yeah, I didn't raise my hand, and
I
it
didn't
ended
raise
up,
it, I could.
and it ended up
I'm
being,
either-
and it ended up
Second
being
one.
3 and 3.
Well, I'm
And
confused by your second question. Are you saying that you want them to present their executive summaries
there's,
later on when they present their warrant articles, or?
there's effectively 2 scenarios, right?
Right.
We get our
I don't
books on the
need them read to me.
27th, and on that night, having all the administrators here
No.
giving an executive summary is what is crossed out effectively. if
Correct.
you
And
like
what, and
that.
what
I
we've done over the
approve.
past years.
And what has been done historically, right?
I
So
approve this.
you approve crossing it out?
Yes.
Okay, okay,
I don't need them to tell me something I can read.
okay.
Are they
Save-
still
save
gonna
your
be
time.
here?
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna say that. I don't even necessarily need them to present it. I mean, we've already discussed this with the administrative reports, that reading what they give us is kind of redundant, but maybe if they were just present.
I don't think we ever have all the administrators just present at any one time, other than for budgeting.
I
right?
think for the executive summary one we have,
We have.
but that's because they're.
Just for that
They're
one time.
talking about
Right,
it with
right.
you. If they're not gonna, just because I do think that March 6th and March 20th, I have proposed starting at 5 o'clock, which is what we have on the agenda. I anticipate that's like a 4-hour meeting,
Mhm.
just saying out loud.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking we're gonna need some sandwiches or something, so people.
And
know
they'll
that-
be there for that.
They will
Yes.
have, I
They'll
mean,
be there for
especially, and the
those.
first group, warrant
Yes.
article 1 through 7 is all the schools, so they're gonna be there at both nights. Like,
Yeah.
that's a
that's fine.
lot, that's a lot.
I changed my vote.
Really what it means is, it's gonna put the onus on us to really read these
Yes.
things. And if we're gonna have questions, get questions out there in advance of these workshops, so, they can come with answers then, rather than having to read them to us.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, if we had them as written backup for the February 27th meeting, I think that.
Right, you said it's when we're gonna
So
hand it
you'll
out.
get them on the 27th. So you get the full budget on the 27th. That's Gabby and Carrie,
Which
like,
includes-
roadshow.
Right, but that's subtly different than having it arrive so that we can read it over the weekend prior to that.
Correct, and
Yeah,
that
and-
hasn't happened
right.
before, right?
So I was gonna suggest, I realize that puts a crunch on them that could be unrealistic, because it's effectively a week earlier.
Yeah. Yeah, well, not just them, like,
And
Yeah,
Gabby.
right, so I-
we're crunching numbers to like that morning, right? Like, it's
Come on,
to meet the 27th. Don't, Kyle, easy. So really the 27th is you get your notebook, Gabby and I do an overview, like I do an overview on the spending side, Gabby does an overview on the revenue side. We've got our ED 279, which hopefully I will have already gone over with you with my little annotating magic that I do. And each warrant article will have that executive summary. You'll have, so warrant article 1 is gonna be all the principles, and you will have a page to look at prior to March 6th that will give a highlight of like, this is what's in this budget, this is why it's different, this is what's up, this is what's down, these are the variables. And then they will give you a presentation so that you can also hear that on the 6th. And then, the 20th is like transportation facilities, all those other guys, so.
Yes, Bree.
So I'm comfortable with having their executive summaries in the binder on the 27th, reading it myself between the 27th and the 6th. I feel like if we had specific questions, I think waiting to hear what they have to say as they go through each of the warrant articles, but being prepared with your questions so we can move quickly through it. I don't know if it's beneficial or more harmful to try to reach out with our questions between the 27th and the 6th. So principals and special ed directors can come prepared with answers to those questions. I don't know which would be
Always.
better, but I
Either.
think getting the information in written form in the binder on the 27th still gives us ample time to read through and look through and be prepared on March 6th without having them also like stand up and say all of that and then come back again on March 6th and like be repetitive about it.
I'll say too, is that, there are two potential meetings we could continue to have. Like, we've got this all focused in under two big workshops, but you can see the 27th and the
Correct.
3rd are opportunities to revisit something if there is something of substance that really comes up that we need to focus in on or push out, or something else, like insurance comes up as we move forward. So,
Oh, no.
We have no idea, it's way too
The,
early.
the hard real deadline is April 10th.
Right.
Like, we have to have a budget by April 10th or we won't be able to do anything else.
So, yeah, I feels like we're all leaning more towards not having to have administrator parade on the 27th with everybody.
Well, are they gonna dress up?
It's like the
Come on,
parade
Evan.
TPS, recreate the TPS
Chad
parade.
volunteered, I saw it.
So.
Hey, she kissed a pig, is that enough?
So,
That was gonna be my question,
Yes.
was, do the administrators feel okay with that plan? Like, if you present your executive summaries in writing on the 27th, but you don't present them, will you be okay with receiving questions via email that we might have to prepare for the March 6th presentations?
I'm less likely to panic if I have the questions ahead.
Okay, perfect.
Why are they asking that?
I don't know, Carrie, I mean, I imagine a common complaint is, can we go to more board meetings, I imagine.
I have to beat them back.
So, all right.
Granted.
You're such a generous guy, Kyle, oh my God, such a giver, such a giver.
All right. Any other topics of conversation around this timeline schedule?
I don't know that it needs to be clarified, because we've had this beaten into us, but I suspect all questions need to go to you, not to them.
Oh, I mean, Carrie or
To
I.
me,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just easier, and Gabby and I like keep track of questions during meetings and reply the next time,
Yeah.
like, we just try to keep it all, so, because it's just gonna be, if
We're
you guys
just-
are
we're talking
getting
about
random
the
answers,
email and
keeping
like,
track
yes,
of it.
it's no-
It's a
Yeah.
very good point.
Yeah.
We'll let Carrie ask the administrators our questions.
Yep,
Yeah, that way they trickle into you,
yes,
and
and
then
we,
you can just
and they
send
keep them
all
all
of
in
them
one
out to
place,
them.
yeah,
That would be better.
yeah.
If we don't want repetition, they don't want repetition.
Everybody wins.
All right. Good point, Peter. Anyone else with questions on this timeline? Thoughts? Okay. Then I guess we should put it to a vote. And I think put it to a vote with the cross out in effect.
Yeah.
Is what we're putting to a vote. Yes.
I move that we accept this as presented.
I think we already got it.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
got
I
a
think we
motion.
have that.
Kyle motion,
Kyle
Peter
and
seconded.
Oh, did you really? Okay,
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah.
So
I missed that
accept it as-
completely.
we're in the
Yeah, we
discussion,
discussed
yeah. So
I
as
remember discussing it.
shown.
I feel your pain, Anthony. I was there earlier.
That's right, that's how we started the meeting.
Right, right.
We're gonna end the meeting that
Item
way.
8.2, yes. All right, all those in favor? All those, oh, it's unanimous, we're good.
So beautiful.
Which brings us to everyone's favorite, a motion to adjourn. Anthony, seconded by
No, no,
Kyle.
no, no, no.
Oh.
I have an item of new business.
Ah, okay, yes.
I would like to, I make a motion for us to discuss sending a letter from the board to the president-elect regarding the continuation of funds, federal funds, in relation to his statements about dissolving the Department of Education. I have a sample letter. That's my motion.
Is there a second to that? Alex? All right, so you have shared your letter with me. I think it's probably worth sharing it with everyone. I hesitate to approve sending a letter offhand right now until everyone's had a chance to review. perhaps we postpone this to next meeting so people can actually review this letter and get their thoughts around it. I'll say that Anthony did request this to be on the agenda, shared the letter, and after looking, again, Carrie and I set the agenda, but I had made the decision to not include this. My feeling on that is that it's a pretty sensitive time for certain people regarding national politics. And this could be a divisive thing to do. And frankly, it's not something that is likely to really have any kind of impact. I mean, sharing our opinion on a national political issue with the new administration, I'll be surprised if it actually makes a big difference, but I think it could take up a lot of our time, and as well as being unnecessarily divisive. So I can tell you already that I'm not going to be supportive of doing this, but certainly it's been made a motion and seconded for discussion. I would just encourage folks to really read it and not necessarily make a big decision on this right now. Perhaps we postpone it to next meeting so people can review this letter and maybe wordsmith it for next time. I know that we can spend a lot of time trying to come up with language for letters like this and for statements. And I would encourage us to not necessarily try to do that right here and right now, but to think about it and come back with suggestions next time. Bree.
I do not agree with President-elect as well, as you're saying in this letter, what I've read, scanning it quickly. I think this is obviously, does hold impact for the future. However, I do not feel comfortable going ahead and making any sort of collective decision on this letter as it is, since I just received it in front of me 30 seconds ago. So I'd like to make a motion that we postpone voting on this particular letter as our collective standing in response to President-elect's initial promise, and give us some time to read this proposal and come back with some time to think about it, talk about it, pose questions, wordsmith it, that sort of thing. I'm not ready to make a vote on it, so I make a motion that we postpone or table voting on this for a future board meeting.
Anyone want
Postpone
to?
or table, like,
I heard a table.
Table,
Okay,
okay.
is there a
I
second
think that's a
on,
more accurate word I have to use.
on that motion? I'll second it, or Jamie will second it, she said. So, all those, well, I guess discussion around tabling the motion. Anyone want to?
I mean, I think that we are taking, by voting on this letter, we are taking a stance as a board and a district on something that was a campaign promise that has not come to fruition yet. A lot of campaign promises are made and then unable to be enacted on. So I'm voting that we table it as well because we don't know what's going to happen yet. And so the Department of Education isn't gonna be dismantled in one day or 1 week. And I think when that comes, I mean, he hasn't even taken office yet, so when that comes to fruition, we can revisit this. But taking a stance on something that might possibly happen as a district is dangerous, I think.
Go ahead, Anthony.
So, this letter does not take a stance on the dissolution of the Department of Education. It simply states that we wanted to share some concerns related to that statement that he made. The meat of the letter basically says, we cannot operate our schools without federal funds. And that those federal funds are most useful to us when they come without strings attached, so that we can spend the money in ways that, that we know best and that Washington is probably dimly aware of, if at all. Given that he is, he's putting his administration together, and their ears, I believe, are open, I don't think that a letter like this can do any harm. And it's entirely possible that, that it could get read by somebody of influence. I was motivated to draft this letter by conversations I've had with many people in the town of Greene, often at the grocery or pumping gas. And they're really concerned about their local taxes and how much of a percentage of those taxes go to public education. The whole point of this is to make sure that those dollars continue to flow from the federal government to our schools, and that we can use them in ways that are as efficient for us as possible. I am tempted to postpone the vote, to give people plenty of time to read this and think about it, but postpone it to the next meeting, rather than table indefinitely.
The way I'm reading this is, and Anthony, I do read this in a way that it does take a stance, and I wouldn't vote for anything that is for or against anything regarding a campaign. It does, that's how I'm reading it, the way it's written. So, don't know.
Just remind folks, we're currently discussing whether or not to table this motion. Is there anyone that wants to add on to that discussion?
Well, just
Yeah,
clarification. The motion on the floor now is to table.
Yes.
That is to,
Yeah.
that is not a time frame on the table. So when would it bring forward?
We'll come back forward. So, again, we got into this before when we were doing organizational things and we tabled certain things, and I had to read Robert's rules to figure out the difference. So just a quick briefing on that is that when you table something, you put it on the table, you vote to put it on the table, and you vote to take it off the table, okay? If we postpone, a postpone comes with a definitive date that would automatically put it back on the agenda at that time. But if we table this, someone will have to move to take it off the table, and we will vote whether we want to take it back off the table or not.
Because there's two scenarios in my mind. One, as Anthony says, if you were trying to get ahead of the curve, and, you know, right now, the hope is that somebody in the administration might, or upcoming administration, might be actually looking for discussion out there. So in that case, it needs to be done sooner than later. The more realistically, Jamie said, nothing's true, we're not gonna have any real idea of what direction they're really gonna head in the administration until well into the spring. Once they actually get their feet underneath them and start making the proposals, and that's when our concerns can come, our concerns or applause, or however you wish to word it, can come into play. So I'm just not a fan of putting it on the table and just letting it sit there and be hanging over our heads. So I guess in my mind, it should either be for the next meeting, or we should vote it up or down tonight. That's what I'm looking for. So I would basically guess then I'd vote against tabling it indefinitely at this point.
Okay.
So,
yes?
I will amend, has it been seconded?
Yes.
Yes, it's seconded by
I will
Jamie.
amend
Well-
the motion to state that we postpone this to the next meeting.
I don't know.
Bree made the motion to table, though.
Yeah, Bree made a motion to table. I think we need to act on that. I don't think we can just take it off.
The easiest way to do it is if both, I'm not saying Lorenzo's, if both
Yeah.
of them
If you want to withdraw the motion to
withdraw it
table
and want
and
to
make
change
it
it
a motion
to
to
a
postpone.
postponement or
But
however.
that
word it.
fundamentally change, that amendment would fundamentally change, like,
Yeah.
the action on the floor.
Right, that's what amendments do.
Anyways,
um, It serves the same purpose to act on this motion to table, and we could make a motion to postpone immediately afterwards if the motion to table does not pass. So, does anyone else want to discuss the motion to table before we take a vote on the tabled motion? Okay, all those in favor of tabling the motion? All those opposed? Okay. So the motion to table fails. Go ahead, Anthony.
I'll make a motion to postpone to the next meeting.
Okay. So now we're into, is there a second to that? Second by Alex. All right, now we're discussing the motion to postpone to the next meeting.
I think it's perfectly appropriate to postpone to the next meeting to give ample time.
Yep. Any more discussion around that? Okay, all those in favor of postponing to the next meeting? All those opposed?
Wait. No, I didn't hear. I
All
didn't
those
see
in
everybody.
favor of postponing to the next meeting? Okay, all those opposed? Any abstentions?
Crystal's not here.
Crystal's not here, right, there we go. Okay, so the motion is postponed to next meeting. Now, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Kyle, seconded by Peter. All those in favor? It is unanimous.
on a lighter note,